The lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And welcome to the broadcast tonight. Glad you are with us on this, what is it, guys? March 17th? March 17th, as I finished sending a text to someone very important. March 17th, 2026. We are going to be joined tonight by John Giddock. Remember, I started interviewing him in 2007 related to terrorist attacks, and particularly his book on the terror at Beslan that you'll find on Amazon. There it is. We talked about many things back then in 2007. I want to revisit some of them today that include a very coordinated and strategic attack on America from one coast to the other by the Islamists all on the same day. I want to talk to him about that, soft targets, the schools, the drones, and what has happened recently that should cause schools and officials to be sitting up and paying attention because of, well, the very soft targets of schools. Remember, Dave Gobbett said the Islamic leaders, when he goes undercover in the mosque, say, next time we hit Americans, we're going to hit them where it's close to their hearts. Would that not be their children and grandchildren? We're going to have John Giddock on tonight. You should tweet, text, email, Facebook, Gitter, True Social. This guy's written so many books. Just go to Amazon and look up all the books that he has written. He has The Terror at Beslan. He has one, let's see here, called Shooter Down, the dramatic untold story of the police response to the Virginia Tech massacre. This guy has a lot of information. I guarantee you're going to be on the edge of your seat when you hear John tonight. It's been a while since we've had him on. We're going to get him back tonight. When Terror Returns, the history and future of terrorist mass hostage sieges. When Terror Returns, the history and future of terrorist mass hostage sieges. John Giddock joins us tonight. Now, we know the big news is the guy at the Department of National Intelligence, Joe Kent, has resigned. He cited that Iran is not a threat. Well, that's not true. We dealt with it today at 1 o'clock Central with Annie Cyrus. And I've got some clips that I did not have time to play on TV today at 1 o'clock. I only got to play one clip. I have some more clips I want to play tonight of my friend, the late Dr. Peter Vincent Pry. He was a CIA analyst. I want to talk to him. I want to play for you clips where we were producing his TV show where he warned again and again why Iran is a threat. So Joe Kent can say, look, I'm resigning because I don't agree with the war. We should have just let Israel do it, whatever it might be. But to put in your resignation letter that Iran is not a threat to the country, that is false. And yet that's exactly what he said in the letter right here. Here it is. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. Right there in the second paragraph. Wrong-o. They have a nuclear weapon, at least one, if not more. They are practicing shooting missiles off of cargo containers. That would allow them to deliver an EMP up over the U.S., electromagnetic pulse over the U.S., which would be a civilizational killer. We got clips tonight from Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, and I'm going to have Annie Cyrus respond to some of this as well. We're also going to get a report tonight from Shahram Hadian. Shahram is down in Texas, and he's going to talk to us about all of the churches that are being bought up by the Islamists. They're buying up a lot of Protestant churches. They're turning them into mosques, and they're bragging that what they're doing in Texas, in Dallas, is part of a national campaign to do in Florida and other places as well. So we got quite the lineup tonight. Shahram Hadian, John Giddock, Annie Cyrus, and frankly, Peter Pry from video, the late Dr. Peter Vincent Pry. Now, do you appreciate all we're doing, folks? If you do, all the work we do, we work very hard. We work a lot of long hours, folks, no doubt about it. I even work on Sunday nights, bringing you my church service as I'm teaching through the book of Daniel right now. We work so hard and to bring you a network like no other, frankly, I think. Certainly not many networks out there that do the volume of news we do, and certainly not through the lens of a Christian worldview or through the lens of Bible prophecy. So if you appreciate what we're doing, we need your support. I'm really trying to urge a lot of you that can financially support us, but are not to do so, even with $10, $20 a month. Would you please consider going now to worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com, and setting up a contribution of any amount, worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. Hey, you can also get some great products while you support us. Here's Happy Howl. Dolly loves the Happy Howl, don't you, Dolly? This is the Tasty Turkey Feast. She loves it. And she gets quite excited about it. You know this. This is yours, isn't it? Yes, this is yours. But you know what it is, Dolly? You're going to try to rip open the box, are you? Right here on TV? Oh, you're going to take it off? No, you can't. You know what it says? 100% human grade. 100% human grade. I can't read it when you're moving it. No artificial preservatives. And complete and balanced food for all ages, and it's cooked in a USDA kitchen. Yeah. You can tell she loves the Happy Howl, and you can get it at dollyfood.shop. She gets a variety. This is the Tasty Turkey. She also has Mama's beef stew, but her favorite is the lamb. She loves the lamb. She loves the lamb. And you can get it. Oh, you're looking for it over on this side? You can get it at dollyfood.shop.com. It's right here, Dolly. dollyfood.shop.com. That's where you can get it. And a lot of you are putting your fur babies on it. And you know what we're noticing, by the way? I don't want to get too graphic, but guess what? Since we put her on this, she not only seems more content, but we're not having to clean up as much number 2. Yeah. Did you know that, Logan? Logan, you did not know that? We're not having to clean up as much number 2 because apparently a lot of the food we were feeding her, which we thought was really good food, we did our homework, but we really decided we got to get better. Apparently that food has a lot of filler. A lot of dog foods have filler in it. Doesn't really have any digestive or nutritional value, and it just runs right through them. And as a result, you end up with a lot more number 2 in the yard than you need. So when their body actually is absorbing the food for nutrition, you end up with less number 2 in the yard. So there you go. That's one of the positive things. I didn't know if you guys knew that, as Johnny Carson would say. I did not know that. So there you go. That's another positive about the dollyfood.shop. Let's see what else. Go over to worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. You'll find all the other sponsors over there. We give Dolly the Bella Grace. I'm sorry, not the Bella Grace, the Gatatana at melissahousegpa.com, melissahousegpa.com. You'll find it all over there. The water purifiers, the Bella Grace, the Swish for Life. That's the glutathione, the Worldview Talk. That's your satellite phones, your solar generators, your bulletproof backpacks, your blankets, and everything that knock down the EMF. They'll find the Worldview Healthcare. Get your emergency kits with antibiotics. God forbid there's a disruption in just-in-time inventory or critical infrastructure. Somebody could get strep throat or something like that, and you could be in serious health crisis without an antibiotic. I mean, look how many people died before we got antibiotics. So have these on hand in case there's a disruption at any point so that you have your own urgent care. All of these are great products. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Check them out. We got to get going. We got a lot to do tonight. Joining me now is John Gildick. He is a guy that wrote a book. It's in my library right over here. Pretty thick book. A warning years ago about America's schools after he studied the terrorist attack in the former Soviet Union, Beslan. We covered that last night. I said we're going to get him back because we dealt with this story earlier in the week. Tactical gear, gun, Iraqi-born naturalized citizen busted in Klein, Texas, getting into a school. The secretary said she thought he was wearing a patch that looked like that of a police officer. That's troubling. Then we know there was the attack at the synagogue. And that had a school in it. I have that article somewhere in here. I have so many tabs open tonight. But I have that article where that synagogue was attacked. And that guy, here we go, IDF says brother of Michigan synagogue attacker was Hezbollah commander. Hezbollah, that's Iran. Wait a minute, I thought there was no imminent threat from Iran to America. Joining me now is John Gilduck, because he has been warning about the soft targets of our schools. John, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us. I'm sure you saw these two reports. Maybe you've seen others I haven't seen. But when you saw this guy trying to penetrate this school in Klein, Texas, did you wonder if this guy was being sent in to test the system? Because I sure did.
My immediate reaction really wasn't just to the Klein, Texas penetration or attempted penetration. I really tended to view it in a much broader scope, because we have had in rapid succession, both in the United States and in a couple countries in Western Europe, a really intense and prolific series of terror attacks. A number of them have involved schools, they've involved synagogues with schools, they've involved synagogues, they've involved embassies. And while I continue to always try to warn people that schools represent and will always represent one of the most desirable targets of terrorists, especially the Islamist jihadist terrorists that we're dealing with, that everyone's dealing with. But they are not the only targets. And sometimes, and increasingly so, due to, I think, increased security measures, sometimes the schools are a little bit more difficult to get to anymore, especially in the United States. But the school attacks are concerning. Penetrations and efforts at penetration of our schools are not only concerning, but they're occurring. And the problem is that these are just the couple ones that have made it into the headlines for people like us to be painfully aware of, and for the rest of the public to be aware of. But I would continue to warn the public, and I mean the American public and the public of so many Western European nations, that schools are under surveillance. They're having intelligence gathered. And given the large number of terror attacks and attempts that have occurred in the U.S., really just since the February 28th bombing began in Iran, it's particularly concerning. It tells us that there's a lot of actors out there. There are groups. There are sometimes individuals, what people like to think of as lone wolves. They have had plans or potential plans for this kind of thing sitting on their respective drawing boards for quite some time now. And not only have we seen quite a number of them, but I fear that we're going to continue to see them.
Here's his book, by the way, for those who want to order it at Amazon. Terror at Beslan. John Gilduck is there. Now, we have on regularly Dave Gobbets. I don't know if you know Dave or not, but he wrote the book with Paul Sperry, Muslim Mafia. And he has gone undercover at about 425 mosques in America. We paid his travel and honorarium to go and do a study for us on the mosque there in Dallas, Plano, Texas area, the Epic. And he gave us a sworn affidavit that has now been requested, this information, by the Attorney General of Texas. Their investigators reached out to us, our team, and said, we understand you guys have been covering this. Can we, talk with you? I think that's already happened. David called and said, can I give them the report that you paid for? I said, absolutely, you can. So these mosques, they're growing rapidly. They're taking over Texas. They're buying up churches. How concerned do we have to be that some of these terrorist attacks could actually end up being carried out by students, teenagers who are students?
Well, I think it's a significant concern. Certainly, Brandon, we have to look at it from the same perspective as our own socially produced predators that we see in schools. So many of them are young people. Young people are not only often at difficult times, crises in their lives, but they are particularly susceptible to the sort of indoctrination and recruiting that goes on. And just in fact, one of the attacks that I just mentioned involved 4 teenagers, ages 17 to 19. So I do think that we have to be ever more aware, certainly ever more concerned and alert to the fact that these are not just necessarily going to be what we would think of as veteran war-aged males, people who have been radicalized for some period of time, perhaps have been to war zones in Chechnya, Afghanistan, elsewhere, but that they are, at this point, our own youth, because we have a lot of immigrants. And of course, I'm not waving I'm not cutting a broad swath for all immigrants, and certainly not all Muslim immigrants, but we do have a large number of immigrants from many of these countries that representatively do pose a threat or historically have had an overrepresentation of people who are threats, who are radicalized, coming out of them. And a lot of these youth, they've now, if they have not been raised in the United States through their formative years, up through their adolescent, teen, and even early adult years, many of them may have been born here now. And it's not something we can turn a blind eye to.
Let's talk about drones. Because these drones now, $20,000 drones can be super deadly, as we're seeing with Iran right now against Israel, sending in drone after drone after drone. The FBI, DHS have come out, warned about a potential drone attack on the West Coast. I'm not so sure I'm as concerned. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm not really concerned about drones flying off of a ship off the West Coast. I think they can monitor and keep track of some of these ships and where they're coming from, what's going on. I kind of see that as, hey, we want to warn you Americans about terrorist attack involving drones. We just don't want to tell you exactly where we're thinking it might come from because, oops, it's probably going to come from inside the country because these characters are here. We already know we've got thousands, tens of thousands of terror cells, terrorists inside the country. So I think they're already here with drones, but doesn't mean they can't come off the coast. But I think they're already here. When you think about school shootings and Beslan, Beslan was 2004, if I remember correctly. So we're talking about now, do the math on that, 2004, what is that, 22 years? 22 years ago? So look at
September, yes.
Yeah, September will be 22 years. Think about the technology advancement in those 22 years. Maybe they don't need to use gunmen. Maybe all they need to do is wait for school to get out and I hate to, I'm not giving them any ideas. So any of you think I'm giving them ideas, I'm not. These people game and war game these things all the time. Trust me, if I've thought about it, they've already thought about it. But think about all these school children.
Sorry to interrupt you. The only people who think about it to the degree they do and with the creativity they do really are the movie script writers in Hollywood who are brilliant at coming up with the
Well,
plots.
Think about the number of school children that are pouring out of the school building when school is dismissed and the buses are all lined up and they're all headed to the buses and the carpool. Okay. I mean, that is a target-rich environment. And if you've got some jihadis that are just a few miles away and they release 5, 6, 7 drones and they're piloting them, do you know the damage they could do to those kids with those drones alone? I mean, so we're kind of beyond just the school shooters now, are we not?
Absolutely. Since Beslan, and as you point out, that's been well more than 2 decades ago now, the sophistication not only of the available weaponry, but the sophistication of the planning, the sophistication of the intel gathering, and the amount of information that is available to these people on the internet. So even if they're not coming up necessarily with their own brilliant ideas, something new and unprecedented, and attacking children as they run out of school buildings would not even be new here to the United States. We saw it in West Paducah, Kentucky years ago. We saw it in Bath, Michigan in 1929. So it doesn't take too much of a Google or AI search to even resurrect those old attacks and incidents. but the availability of rudimentary weapons that have a greater sophistication than what might have even been military grade weapons years ago is of particular concern. And while they may not, a lot of these people aren't going to be accessing or have access to military grade weaponry, military grade drones in particular, there is still a lot of damage that can be done with some of the higher end, higher tech commercial drones that are available today. I have a dear friend who's a retired Green Beret colonel, full colonel, Vietnam era guy, who has been over in Israel ever since the October 7 massacre. He has dual Israeli-U.S. citizenship. He's been over there working, providing what assistance he can, what help. And he and I have had not quite daily, but darn close to daily conversations, communications, quite often, obviously, by email ever since. And he is in a place right now and for the last several weeks that has been inundated with not just missiles and rockets, but drone attacks. And we've been having a very discussion about what is available to deal with these drones. Some of them, of course, deliver a payload. But the ones that are available to the do-it-yourself terrorists, for instance, that we are going to have, or we may well recognize we have a lot of here in the United States, you can take a commercial-grade drone, and it can, in fact, be weaponized, and it can cause a lot of damage, an awful lot of damage, even if it's a kamikaze-type direct action hit that you're using it for. These things, given some of the budgets that these people likely have available to them, these things are pretty darn affordable, and they can cause a lot of death and a lot of destruction. And you couple that with some of the other school incidents that we've had where students are in fact flooding out of schools, where we've had snipers set up in positions. So between the drones and the snipers, other explosives that can be strategically placed, as happened in Bath, Michigan, so many years ago, almost 100 years ago, our schools could be very vulnerable, as could really any targeted building.
Oh, a church dismissing at noon on Sunday, a synagogue, dismissing on a Saturday, right? I'm sorry about all the controversy surrounding Joe Kent in his resignation, but we played yesterday. And we've played several times, but it's ironic we were playing it yesterday. His warning of 18,000, just a subset of 18,000 terrorists in the U.S. tied back to ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Of course, we know these names eventually mean nothing because the background of a lot of these people, they jump from team to team and people get caught up in the names and they really shouldn't. And of course, it doesn't really matter if you're Sunni or Shiite. When they go to war with the enemy, they're going to join and set aside their differences, just like we see the Marxist and the Islamist, the red-green axis here in America and in Europe. They're setting aside their differences right now to unite against their shared enemy. They're not sitting there arguing Marxism and Islam with each other. They're working together to defeat their shared enemy, then they'll deal with it later. So these guys will fight each other. They'll battle each other, the Shias, the Sunnis, the Shiites. But when it comes to going to war, they're going to, against the infidels, they're going to do it. And some of these guys get funding from Iran. They've worked with Iran. Then they go work with this group. They go work with that group because they just are following the Quran or the Hadiths. I mention all that because here we have just this subset of 18,000 terrorists that Joe Kent himself mentioned, who says, Iran's not a threat. Really? Joe, you know better than that, I think. I've interviewed you. I think you know better than that, Joe. And I don't think you can say that none of those 18,000 have ever had any kind of connection, funding, or training from Iran. I don't think you can say that. But if you go with his figure, John, of 18,000, all week long I've been running through this little math formula. 18,000 in just that one subset. If you take that 18,000 and you divide it among 48 of our states, the lower states, leaving out Hawaii and Alaska, that's 375 terrorists per state. That's 375 terrorists in each of the 48 states just from that subset. If you divide them into 5-man killing squads, that is now 75 5-man killing squads. if they're activated in all 48 states on the same day or in the same 24 hours or 48 hours, and then you add in drones and snipers like you're talking, can you even imagine, John?
I can imagine. And as we've discussed in the past, when I've been on your show before, a lot of this gets toward not exactly what Osama bin Laden's prophesied or fantasized perfect day was, but it gets a lot closer to it. And
well, can you tell our audience again that perfect day? That's something we've been talking about since 2007. But for those who don't know, what is the perfect day?
It was a notion bin Laden had, and really others. To be honest with you, I don't even know that he necessarily was the inventor of it, but certainly was a proponent of it, where they envisioned every single one of the Muslims, especially in Western countries, rising up all at once. And whether you're just an average, everyday working person, raising your wife, family, kids, what have you, every single Muslim in America, particularly, thinking up their own attack, rising up and executing it. Even if it's just walking next door to your neighbor with a gun or a knife and stabbing him to death. They envisioned that all of those Muslims would rise up on one single day and attack someone who was an enemy of Islam or some asset or some government, really depending on what their capability was. And I juxtapose that with the November 2008 mass 4-day-long terror attack in Mumbai, India. And that was the greatest of what's considered the symphonic attacks as a terror attack methodology. And it's really the most complex of them all. It was the biggest symphonic attack ever launched. And I was there shortly after and went to all those sites with the Special Forces commanding general and his team leaders to understand and examine just what exactly they had done, how they had managed to pull it off. And what you had, much as you point out, was a very small group of terrorists that largely broke up into two-man teams. Two of them joined to have a four-man team. And for upwards of 4 days, they ran around the streets of Mumbai, India, engaging in different types of terror attack methodologies or tactics and different targeting. And it had that entire city just completely paralyzed due to the difficulty of that sort of an attack with just those few 10 terrorists. They had the Mumbai authorities actually thinking they had between 100 and 200 terrorists in the city. That is the confusion and chaos that reigned. So if we look at the hypothetical that you're presenting based on the 18,000 potential radicalized people here in the U.S., and my personal opinion is that if Mr. Kent is disclosing 18,000, that number is substantially higher. And from my own calculations, I have come up with a much higher number. But even if we're only going to go with the 18,000, yeah, the paralytic effect that it would have on the United States in terms of culture, in terms of law, in terms of our freedoms, our ability to operate as a nation would be really inconceivable.
And then you add in all the, and by the way, here's some footage from that, November 26, 2008. I remember when this happened. I think most people do. I think it occurred right around, look up the date. I think it occurred right around our Thanksgiving time, didn't it, guys?
It went on it started November 26, exactly. It went on for 4 days.
Yeah, it was around our Thanksgiving time, right, guys?
Well, I don't know if you're talking to your people.
I'm talking to my people. Yeah, right there. But do we know that was Thanksgiving, Logan? Was that was? Look up when it was, because I thought I remember us being involved in Thanksgiving and then monitoring this a lot. But yeah, this was. It went on for 4 days. They gathered a bunch of them, almost like Beslan. And 4 years earlier, they gathered. It was around Thanksgiving, right? Yep. Okay, Thanksgiving, November 27th. So yeah, I remember being gathered around Thanksgiving, watching and monitoring this. Much like Beslan, and you keep showing that footage, Logan, but much like around Beslan, where they gathered them in that gymnasium, they gathered a lot of these people in the hotel ballrooms. And Did they not, John?
Really, it was an effort they made due to the fact that a lot of the people in the hotels, and there were actually more hotels than the news media ever really presented, people were definitely taking cover, taking shelter in the rooms, and what made it difficult for them was that they were forced to go floor to floor in some cases, trying to get into rooms, trying to kill people. Yes, they were moving them and they were attempting to collect them, but with the exception of the final hotel where the last two terrorists were killed, which I think was the Leopold, they really were never able to get a large concentration of hostages in a single place where they would be able to effect a mass execution of hostages. For instance, as we saw at the Bataclan Theater in Paris, again, 20 years ago, and, well, no, not quite 20, but also the Pulse nightclub here in the United States. These are tactics that we are seeing terrorists actually engage in, use, employ here in the United States. We've already seen it. And the truth of the matter is, in too many cases, law enforcement is not studying this. They're not paying attention to it. And granted, I understand that local law enforcement, they have so many other things to do that it's hard to ask them to be broad scale, global terror experts. But this is also why it gets frustrating when news stories break like the one from just a few days ago that the White House, and again, this is the news story, allegedly, has prohibited the release of intel information to law enforcement throughout the United States that they are sitting on top of with regard to planned terror attacks and possibly known terrorists. And I don't think it's any small coincidence that immediately after that story broke, that Mr. Kent decided to resign his position.
Stop right there, if you would, please. Okay, that's pretty interesting what you just said. Will you go over that again?
Yeah, just a couple days ago, it was a breaking news story. I don't have any peculiar inside information on this, but that apparently sources had revealed that the White House or the federal government, our intel agencies, had a significant amount of information, had intelligence on planned or at least developing terror attacks, terror threats here in the United States, specific targets, and supposedly President Trump or others who are his close advisors had refused they squashed it. They had refused to allow that information to be released to local law enforcement so that they could be alerted to it.
Okay.
And as I started to say, I didn't see it as any great coincidence that just a day or two after that, Mr. Kent decided to resign his position as director of the National Counterterror Center.
Well, what's very interesting about that is one of our broadcast partners, Annie Cyrus. You two don't probably know each other, and you probably haven't heard her say this, but on my radio show today at 1 o'clock Central, she said what you just said. She said, what if this guy's resigning because he knows a huge terrorist attack is coming and he doesn't want to be sitting in that chair when it happens because that's his job. His whole job is counterterrorism in the U.S. So what if he knows something's coming and he doesn't want to be sitting there when it happens?
Well, it's impossible for me to speak to Mr. Kent's motivations or what his thoughts are. I do not know the gentleman. I've never met him. While I've had the great honor and luxury of having met or encountered a number of top-level people in counterterrorism in our government over the years in different agencies, he is not someone I know. However, again, it isn't lost on me the timing that very shortly after it appears, if we can take that, arguendo, as we lawyers say, for the sake of discussion, that in fact the Trump administration did put a stop to any disclosure or dissemination of this terror intel. And if it, in fact, is actionable intel, and that directive went to Mr. Kent as well, and his real frustration isn't isn't so much that he's afraid to be the guy sitting in the hot seat if a terror attack happens, but that he doesn't want to be the person who was forced to sit back and do nothing and say nothing when, in fact, bringing our warriors, our brothers and sisters in blue in law enforcement and other critical agencies into the fold and making them witting, as the intel phrase goes, making them witting as to this. I could understand his frustration and why he might say, I can't be a part of this.
Yeah. Well, Matt Tardio, who is a former Special Forces guy, regular guest on the show, he put out today, I need to say this about Joe Kent being potential security risk. I went to Joe last week with a leak issue that would have gotten U.S. soldiers killed. He picked up the phone and handled it. I disagree with Joe's views on this situation, but I do not believe him to be a risk to service members. He answered the phone to save their lives last week. So there you go. There's a lot of information out there. We're just reporting what we're hearing, and it's very troubling. But the bottom line is, now in Mumbai, India, 2008, that was just 10 terrorists. Did you say 10?
Yes.
Divided into two-man teams.
Right.
And do you know, the first time I interviewed you, I went back and looked at our vault on the perfect day, this idea of carrying out multiple terrorist attacks in the U.S. the same day. That was 2007. So you and I have been talking about the perfect day, the Islamic plan to go to war all at the same time in America since 2007. That 18,000, if they are orchestrated and they have a plan, like you say, can you imagine how many thousands will join in on that, both from the red and the green, the Marxists, the anarchists, the Islamists? Can you imagine how many more tens of thousands, once they get going, will just be monkey see, monkey do and join in?
There is that mob herd pack mentality. Certainly the mob aspect of it is accurate, that you see with human beings across the board.
We saw it in 2020 with the riots.
Absolutely. People will not initiate things themselves. They won't take a leadership role or position. But once they see momentum going in a certain direction, and you see this in mob attacks like the bar outside of, what was it, Cleveland or Cincinnati just last year. Once they see a bunch of people all beating up on one or two people, they jump in. It is that high school, elementary school playground pile-on mentality. And it is so natural and instinctive for us as human beings. The difference is, and here's where people get, I think, very, very sensitive because they're so concerned about how you present Islam. The simple fact is that these terrorists, but all Muslims who have been educated in Islam, they have not just been educated in Muhammad's Meccan teachings, which went on from the time he was 40 years old, which was the year 610, until the year 622, when he moved to a town called Yathrib that would later be called Medina, and that was really the birth of Islam. It's considered to be the birth of Islam. And then from that point forward, his teachings became ever more strident. They became more genocidal, more vicious, incredibly hostile, and he became a true warlord. And it was from those teachings at that period of time in his life that all of these terrorists take their imprimatur for what they do, that and so much of the information in the hadiths, as you mentioned. But the simple fact is that everybody's been educated in both the Meccan and Medinan teachings. And I do believe that there is reason to have a concern that if, in fact, these Medinan oriented people, i.e. the terrorists, if they start developing a tremendous amount of momentum and they start affecting change in so many places, that yes, you will see more and more people who otherwise might not have taken a role jumping in. And just to give you very quickly, so perhaps your viewers and listeners can have an appreciation, 8 days before the Iran bombing started, we had thousands of Muslims take over Times Square with a leader standing above them with a megaphone screaming, We have taken over New York City. It's time for everybody to know Muslims now control this city. March 1, the bar shooting in Austin, Texas. March 7, 2 Pennsylvania ISIS-involved men allegedly attempted to set bombs off in Times Square. March 8, the U.S. Embassy in Oslo, Norway, was attacked. The following morning, there was another attack in Oslo. March 9, synagogue outside of Belgium. March 10, the guy dressed up in military gear, apparently at the Zwink Elementary School, Spring, Texas. 2 days after that, March 12, Old Dominion University is attacked. Horrible, horrible devastation wreaked on the people there. And the district attorney of Norfolk, Virginia, District Attorney Ramin Fatahi, an Iranian Muslim backed by George Soros, has blamed it on the culture of gun absolutism in the United States. Basically, and he says, so long as we have this sort of a gun culture in America, we can anticipate more of these sorts of terror attacks by Muslims, by Islamists. March 12, a whole new terrorist organization called the Islamic Movement of Companions of Rights bombed a Jewish school in Amsterdam. That was the 4th assault on a Jewish site that week. March 13, explosion fire at a synagogue, and this has gone on and on. So we are in the middle of an incredible succession of terror attacks, and whether there is any sort of central planning to it or they are all just keying off one another and feeling like, all right, right now, this is the time. We've all been poised. We've been waiting. We've had our own individual plans sitting on our desktops or on our drawing boards for so long. Now we're going to launch them. And even if it's just the latter, not reflecting any measure of real centralized organization, it is still a huge threat and a harbinger of things to come.
And what do you say about the role? We know that Russia, China, and Iran are all in military and economic alliance together. What do you say about Russia? How much do you think Russia is behind some of this? Because we know that we've been talking all week about Alexander Dugin, who's known as Putin's brain, who is openly stating that one of his goals is to create internal chaos inside the political movements of America, extremist, racist, different groups, to pit the isolationist, if you will, against the folks that, want to do things just not being isolationist, but maybe with a more balanced foreign policy. But you get these groups pitted against each other. I cannot underestimate the role of Russia in some of this chaos. Can you?
I would not underestimate it. What you're seeing with all that is really a resurrection of Soviet policy and Soviet efforts to dismantle the West, obviously, particularly the United States, that went all the way back to Stalin, from Stalin to Khrushchev. And it was always a foundational aspect of their foreign policy when it came to the United States. And of course, we're all well familiar with their illegals program that was so impressive and so prolific here in the U.S. through many of the early decades, even up through the 1980s, I would argue, of the 20th century. And what Putin has done is and he started doing this years ago. He has resurrected all of the old Soviet alliances. That is why he has come to, and consistently now, for quite a number of years, and through a succession of our own presidents, he has come to the aid of Iran. Anytime the U.S. and the UN or other Western nations have been pushing Iran too far, been demanding too much, been too exacting, Putin has always been the first one to jump up and say, oh, wait, here we are, Russia, we're the peacemaker, and I'm going to get involved in this. The Iran-Soviet alliance was a very, very strong one for many years, but make no mistake about it, the same thing has been happening with India. If people really pay attention to what has been going on with India and the leanings that have occurred and some of the agreements that have been struck and the improving relations. People forget that during the Cold War, India was an ally of the Soviet Union, not the United States. And so we are seeing more and more of this, and we have been for quite a number of years. It's all coming to a head now. And what makes it all the worse is we virtually, militarily, geopolitically, gave up Africa to the Russians and the Chinese. And so that is it's a significant flaw in our overall grand strategic global planning and positioning. But Russia has been doing what it always did through the years of the Cold War. Any place that it saw the slightest little bit of power vacuum, it jumped into it and it filled.
So, John, in closing, how do we lose John?
Relations with other nations. Yes, sir.
So, John, in closing, how should people be preparing for this? How should individual families watching tonight, pastors maybe, elders, deacons, rabbis, how should we, school principals, sheriffs, all across this country in their various occupations as officers of the law or civilians, down to the local family preparing? What should we be doing? What's your family doing?
Well, I live in a pretty remote place with clear fields of fire. So my family, we're always pretty well prepared. I've always been impressed with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and what they have always taught their people. I'm not a member, I'm not a Mormon, but I've always been impressed with their overall approach, which is to always tell their people, no matter what, in the best of times, everyone needs to have, I can't remember if it's 2, 4, 6 weeks, 8 weeks of food, water, supplies, medicine, first aid in their house at all times, because you just never know when everything's going to fall apart. I think we just finished 4 years where people were more attuned to that than perhaps at any time in quite a long period of time. And everything from a shortage of toilet paper on, and people were stockpiling and they were taking it seriously. I think that even the people who are not fans of the current president, I think they feel a greater sense of safety and security and stability in the country than we perhaps felt for the previous 4 years.
Did we lose John?
Your guard down. You do need to always be prepared to hunker down, no matter what the problem or threat might be to our infrastructure, to our government. I mean, you see what's happening in Minneapolis. That whole thing flipped in absolutely no time at all. It can happen in many cities. It can happen in a lot of places. I'm a big believer in having the ability to defend yourself and your loved ones and your home, and using whatever tools and implements are available, hopefully lawfully, but whatever are available and necessary. People need to take that seriously as well. By and large, it's a lot of situational awareness, and that goes to the schools, that goes to law enforcement, that goes to the common citizens. We've got upwards of 350 million people in this country, and of every single one of at least the people from teenagers on, they're informed, so they have to inform themselves about things like this. They need to be watching shows like this. If you're informed, you're alert, you're aware, and you're reactive. It is the single greatest intel shield this country could possibly have. But it doesn't do you any good if you're calling law enforcement and saying, I just saw this and this looks really suspicious, but the people in the local police department or sheriff's department, they are not as knowledgeable as the citizen making the call. So everybody has a role in this.
Absolutely. John, we need to get you back more regularly. I want to promote your books. Go to Amazon, folks, and then type in John Gidduck, Giduck, and look at all of his books. 1,500 Years of Fighting, the complete book of Russian, Ukrainian, and Soviet martial arts from Cossacks to Spetsnaz and beyond. There's the one on the terror at Beslan, a Russian strategy with lessons for America's schools. There's so many books here by John. If you want to take a look, the Shoot Her Down, The dramatic untold story of the police response to the Virginia Tech massacre. So there's so much there. Of course, we were really highlighting this book here about Beslan, which, of course, again, is what has been, many think, the scenario coming to America. And yet that was 2004. Here we are, 2026, with drones. I mentioned in closing, John, you don't even have to add kinetic. What if you add those drones and they release bioweapons? And we've already found 2 bioweapon labs, one in Las Vegas and one in California, tied back to the CCP. They could spray these school kids with these drones, bioweapons. Can you imagine, again, the panic? And again, they don't even have to be that successful. God forbid they hurt or kill any child or a bus driver or teacher. But just the act alone, can you imagine the terror? How, in some sense, the drone attack is almost more scarier, because you can say, okay, well, we're going to add in more police and we're going to add in barricades. We're going to push the public back and have a screening process coming in and out. But how do you secure the skies over all these schools? So a drone terrorist attack, the psychological impact alone, which is what terrorism is mostly about. God forbid, again, the fatality rate, but the psychological rate, off the charts.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that goes to the target victim population that they seek to strike. Children. The younger, the better. Look at the horror of Sandy Hook Elementary School, and even high school age kids in Columbine, and even college age kids at Virginia Tech. The younger the people, the closer to what we older folks think of as pure innocence, real innocence, the more devastating it is, and the greater the news media coverage they get, which is the medium that they need to create that horror and have that broad psychological effect that you just mentioned.
And then you talk about the economic effect. And we've done that map. We've done the math on that for several years. If you end up having 2 or 3 attacks on schools, or maybe just one with drones, or suicide bombers or snipers, how many people are going to be quick to run their kids back to school? So if they did hit several schools at one time, and you say, and most Americans are going to say, that's it, I'm not sending my kid tomorrow. Are they going to pull them out and enroll them in a homeschool program on a computer? Or are they going to say, I'm just going to pull my kid out until the school can assure me they have proper security? Where are you going to find the men that are trained that can guard that school 24/7? Because most of our schools aren't guarded 24/7. The school resource officer goes home and goes to bed like the kids and the teachers. Those schools are sitting ducks mostly at night. There's probably not even a lot of janitorial stuff going on in most of those schools at night. So you go to targeting schools, particularly if they're pre-planning and pre-planting, then you're going to have to start securing these buildings 24/7. Where are you going to come up with a team to do it? And where are you going to come up with the funds? And how are you going to handle the economy when most families today are dual income families? It's taking both mom and dad to work to cover either the lifestyle they've chosen or the rate of inflation and the cost of things. So now you're talking about what percentage of people leave the workforce, which in itself has an economical impact. So this whole thing, when you just bring it down to the dollars, not to discount the loss of life, but the terrorism, as you know, is more than just about the kinetic. It's the psychological and the economical.
You know, everything you just mentioned, it heartens me to think that other minds arrive at these conclusions. In the first edition of my Beslan book, and I'm about to release the 3rd edition of it, and it'll be the last edition, but in the first edition, at the end of it, I go through exactly that analysis. How if only, and you always look at what was Al-Qaeda's traditional targeting of four targets simultaneously hit using a single attack methodology. That was why and how they had always done it early on. Things, of course, have evolved a bit since then. But if they were to hit 4 schools across just the time zones of the continental United States, every school in America would shut down. Whether it was consequential due to parents refusing to send their kids to schools or not, the schools would be shut down. The problem is, and this has always been something I'm critical of, our federal government has never come up with a federal plan, a national plan that acknowledges the fact that our schools are primary terror targets. They have had intel for years that they have been looked at for strategic level terror attacks. Nothing's ever been done. Nothing's ever been done to coordinate local law enforcement, schools, minimum standards of protection. You point out few schools have security around the clock. Few schools have security from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Very few actually do. It would be comedic if it weren't so horrific that our schools are so completely naive, unprepared, unequipped. I mean, suffering from the worst case of ostrichitis imaginable when you consider that what is at stake are our children. What would happen then? And I even go through the analysis you just did. One parent out of every family or close to it would drop out of the workforce. We know the majority of those would probably be the women. And I even had an economic calculation of how much money would come out of our economy then, just how much money would be lost in terms of employment taxes going to the state and federal government. It would be devastating. It would be overwhelming to a degree that people couldn't conceive, and those schools would not be reopened until every single one of them looked like armed fortresses, and that alone would cost trillions of dollars. And we're talking, back then it was 124,000 schools in the United States. So we've got somewhere around there still. I think the number's a little bit lower now, but it would cost just an unbelievable amount of money to fortify our schools. And then, as you point out, you just can't have security in those schools when kids are there or an hour before and after school. They have to be secured 24 hours a day. And I can say, I know where we get the people. We have an awful lot of military veterans, former military, even retired law enforcement, who would, they would respond to that bugle cry, and they would show up and they'd say, take me. And they would be more than prepared and capable of providing that security, but you're still going to have to pay them something. And that would add even more to the unbelievable economic drain on this country. Our economy would come to a screeching halt in so many ways.
Unlike Israel, of course, where a lot of their teachers have their rifles sitting right near them because they're part of the IDF.
I hate to disagree with you, but my time in Israel, going all throughout that country with members of their special forces, taking me to all their schools and talking to their special forces people, their other IDF people, their school people, they call it the American myth of Israeli school security.
So you're saying that a lot of the IDF don't have their guns with them at the schools?
They absolutely do not. Here's what every school, as of when I was there, and it's been a number of years now, but when I was there, the Israeli paradigm was that every school that got built was built according to the identical design, so that if they ever had to hit it like they did the Netiv Meir school in Malat Tarsheha in 1974, and they took me into that school and opened up that whole section that's been closed off ever since to show me how that entire hostage-taking and rescue operation went. Every school's built the same, so they don't need intel to go into the school. You figure if we're going to have SWAT teams, Delta Force, SEAL Team 6 Squad, they need a lot of intel on that school. Every school is built the same, so they don't need to do that. And every school has a really high wrought iron fence around the entire campus, small campus. But what they have are 2 security guards at the one gate that exists with sidearms.
So in other words, they're keeping the people pushed back. They're basically turned their schools into prisons.
Well, they have prettier fencing than we see in most prisons. But yeah, it's a high wrought iron fence, and the kids go in and everybody gets locked in. You have armed guards at the gate, and that's how they choose to do it.
Isn't that something? I was just looking for some pictures online of some of their schools, but they probably don't put a lot of the pictures of their schools online. Wow. Can you imagine the expense and the time to try to secure America's schools? But hey, John, we have 50 million. How much did the high school in our town cost, Logan? Over 100 million for the high school, the new high school in our community, and a football stadium that looks like something out of a college university. But there you go. But security-wise, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, our friend Dave Gobbett said when he asked the imams, when he goes undercover, asked some of these guys, what's going to be when you guys hit next time, what would it be? And he says on our show, he was told over and over, next time we hit Americans, we'll hit them where it's near and dear to their hearts. That to me sounds like our children and grandchildren. Closing comment?
What is more near and dear to our hearts, but then them targeting our children in schools is not something new. This is something we've known about since plans we found for several school districts here in the United States in Taliban headquarters, in caves in Afghanistan, and the entire plans, not quite blueprints, but diagrams of Disney World. So this is nothing new. We've had videotapes of them running the terrorists in Afghanistan, of them running school takeover, massacre scenarios in schools. The videotapes are of them assaulting schools. So we've known it. We've known this for a long time. And the United States government, for whatever reason, has chosen really to refuse to take a role. And I look at that, and then I look at the most recent report about there being intel on terror targets, possibly actionable intel on terror targets right now in the U.S. that may be on a short timeline, that the federal government is choosing not to inform America of, and it makes me wonder, makes me concerned.
And yet we had a DHS, I think, report last year warning first responders. So the concern of terrorists dressing up as cops, dressing up as EMT, first responders, and this secretary out of Klein, Texas, is saying that guy that approached that school and got in looked to have a patch like the Houston police. So we do know that there have been plans to dress up like first responders, and there was a report and a warning put out last year we showed from DHS about first responders being warned.
You know, as we know, all that sort of stuff, costumes, uniforms, they are so available in the United States. And if you don't have one and you don't want to walk into a store and be seen on a camera, you can order them on Amazon. You can order rebreathers on Amazon, like the Special Forces and SEALs use, and have them delivered overnight. We have sheriff's departments and police departments all over the country with great programs, often called Explorers, which are like teenage junior police cadet training programs. You know, these kids have uniforms and coats that look just like the law enforcement agencies that they work with. This stuff, if somebody wants it, is not hard to find at all. And we see that even with our own private security profession. The security guards are adorned, they are attired in a way to make them look as close to law enforcement as possible without misrepresenting themselves. But it definitely causes that reaction and that effect that they want whenever they do have to approach someone. And it's a legitimate use, but that stuff is out there everywhere.
Well, the threat to the first responders is that as soon as they see a fellow first responder, they kind of let their guard down. And all they need is let their guard down for 2 seconds for them to be tapped. Boom, boom.
And then that gets us segued into the whole other rabbit hole of threats to our hospitals, and which is a next tier, high level, prolific, prioritized terror target across the board, across the country, across the world.
One of the things I have said here is, what if they did a terrorist attack in one county and it's so overwhelming that county 2 over here has to respond and help back up county 1? Is county 2 EMT and first responders and police and sheriffs run to county 1, then terrorist attack in county 2? And then as county 3 runs to back up county 2, terrorist attack in county 3. And then you just keep precipitating this And then you start having them hitting the first responders once they're on scene. You can see and then you bring in your scenario, then they start targeting the hospitals. This thing goes south super fast.
Yeah, and they did that in Mumbai in 2008.
They did?
One of their targets, it was the Kama and Oblis Hospital, major hospital right there in the city. One of the targets that they hit. And we have confronted that very issue where one jurisdiction in the United States is facing some sort of catastrophic event. Doesn't have to be a terrorist attack, and up until now, mostly hasn't been, but it's still a catastrophic event. And through mutual support agreements with other agencies, they're pouring law enforcement in. They generally try to keep at least a skeleton crew of law enforcement in their own jurisdiction to continue to deal with law enforcement duties. But you're right, as those numbers get thinned out, increasingly, especially for a premeditated, multi-target strategic level attack, they are in no way going to be able to deal with what comes next. I mean, just at Virginia Tech, and one of the things I wanted to mention, I'm just about to release my second edition of that, and the foreword is now written by Curtis Cook, who was the commanding lieutenant of the Virginia Tech SWAT team at that massacre. So he wrote a really great foreword to it. But same thing at Virginia Tech. Inside of an hour of the active shooter call, they had over 300 police officers that just went flying there the moment they heard about it. So they had all the law enforcement they could have possibly wanted, but it was disorganized. It was chaotic.
And it was another prime target.
Absolutely.
And why do they let them do that? Who is on the radio saying we need 300 officers headed to that area? I mean,
nobody asked for any of them. But you know what? To their credit, think of it in terms of 9/11. When 9/11 happened, you had police, you had fire departments, you had firefighters jumping in trucks and cops just jumping in their police cars and racing across 2 states to get to New York just to show up and try and help. So God bless them for that level of heroism and their willingness to take a role. But yeah, when you have that much showing up all at once without any sort of coordination, it's difficult. And like the Donnie Goodman, who was the ops commander at the Blacksburg Police Department, he'd been through one of these before. So he was smart enough right away. He called in mobile cell towers to be brought in. He called in porta potties to be brought in, truckloads full of water, because he knew all this was going to be needed. And he knew that he had to start giving all those other police officers jobs, because as he said to me, if you don't give them something to do, they're going to think it up on their own, which you don't necessarily want.
Wow. And again, the soft targets. Wow. John Gildock, check it out on Amazon. All his great books there. Terror at Beslan, the one on the massacre at Virginia Tech, and so much more. John, thank you for all you're doing, all your great research. Been interviewing you since 2007. Where has the time gone? Wow.
No kidding.
And we still have those interviews all in our vault for people to go back and listen to. Thank you, John.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate you having me.
You too. John checking in tonight, folks. Check out his great books, will you? Terror at Beslan, one of many. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. Joining me now is Annie Cyrus. She was with me at 1 o'clock Central to discuss the surprising resignation this morning of Joe Kent. Now, there's a lot swirling as to why he resigned. There's a lot of speculation. I don't know. Was he cut out of security briefings, as some are saying? If so, when did that happen? Why is he resigning now? Does he think there's a big terrorist attack coming? Interesting enough, my first guest, John Giddick, just referenced that. He didn't know that Annie Cyrus had said the same thing earlier in the day. So two experts are saying the same thing. Maybe he's resigning because he knows there's a big attack coming and he doesn't want to be sitting there in that chair when it happens. I don't know why he resigned, but I do know what his resignation letter says because he released it publicly online. And he says he disagrees with President Trump's attacking of Iran, that they're no real threat. Well, that's kind of interesting because here is a tweet by him back in 2024. September 25th, 2024. Iran has been after Trump since January of 2020 after he ordered the targeted killing of the terrorist Soleimani. Remember the Iranian general guy? I think they only found his finger with his ring on it left. This isn't a new threat. The Secret Service consistently failing to secure Trump is new. We need to figure out exactly why these failures keep happening. All right. So didn't he just contradict himself? Of course, Iran is an imminent threat. As we talked about on radio and TV today, you can bring Annie on. As we talked about on radio and TV today, Annie, he said, and we played the clip last night, ironically enough, of him saying there are 18,000 terrorists in the U.S. connected to ISIS and Al-Qaeda. As we said on radio today at 1 o'clock, a lot of those ISIS Al-Qaeda people have been tied back to Iran, either with training or funding. We keep telling people, along with Hadia and yourself and others, don't get caught up in the names. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all these different names, Hezbollah, Hamas, because they all really are following the Quran, the Hadiths. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. There's the Sunnis, there's Shiites, but they'll work together. Just like Saudi Arabia, Sunni, did with the Shiites, Iran, when the 19 hijackers, according to confirmation, had their flight simulation training in Iran. So we don't need to get caught up in the names. But if Kent says, as we played last night in his testimony before a congressional committee, 18,000 ISIS and Al-Qaeda terrorists in the U.S., well, you know, some of them got their funding, training, or at one time worked with or still are working with Iran. Of course, Iran is a threat to us. We've gone back and showed decades where they were hijacking TWA flights in the 80s all the way forward. We know they're a threat to this country. I don't know why he would say this, but he already has been apparently going to be booked to appear on Tucker Carlson's broadcast. He's also been booked to speak for this event, the Catholics for Catholics event, March 19th. I mean, they've already got him booked to speak. This event, sadly, includes other speakers like, let's see, I think I have the screenshot somewhere in all the many tabs I have opened, but somewhere in here, also speaking at this event, yeah, here it is. Look, Candace Owens. Are you kidding me? Carrie Perjean. Why on earth would General Flynn be a part of this? I think he's one of the directors, isn't he, Logan? What's his title? Senior advisor. So why would he speak with these people? Come on. After all that Candace Owens and Carrie Perjean are saying about the Jews and the Jewish people, and now they're going to add in Joe Kent. I don't know why he resigned. The whole thing is, of course, going to be more fodder. People are going to make him out to be a great hero. I don't know why he really resigned. Was he the source of leaks? I don't know. Was he cut out of intelligence briefings? I don't know. There are rumors. Did he decide to get out before there's a big terrorist attack? I don't know. But wow, he's already booked reportedly to be on Tucker. He's already booked to speak at this event with Candace Owens and Carrie Perjean. Good grief. Annie?
Do you know who was on Tucker Carlson on Friday?
Carrie Perjean.
Exactly. And I have never resigned. Once in my life, I have resigned from a job. And I remember when I was getting ready to write my resignation letter, it was more than 40 days before my resignation day. So I'm not so shocked that on March 19, he's booked for a speech that he resigned, a few days before. Meaning his decision comes back to his decision wasn't solely based on this war. I have a very strong feeling his decision, first of all, I did the same thing. I consulted a couple of good friends on my decision. So I'm guessing he consulted some of his friends and way ahead of time Now, sometimes resignation can come with some rewards from other, especially repetitions. And on my show, one thing I did say is, Brandon, if you remember, I said this on your show for the first time last year. I said, wait, as we might one day hear that Tulsi Gabbard ends up being the woman who leaked information to our enemy. Do you remember that day?
I do.
It was the same day you had Trevor Loudon on.
Yeah.
Now it happens the man who reports to Tulsi Gabbard resigns. And again, as we mentioned on my show with one of my audience who was commenting, I won't be shocked if Tulsi soon here resign as well. But the whole information, as you said, right now it's rumor, and I genuinely don't care for the reason anymore. As of right now, whatever his reason was, I don't care. What I do care about is, number one, for Americans to realize that we have too many cowards inside our government. It is important to acknowledge that. Stop labeling another rhino and another this, another that. This is what a coward does, either for benefits or taking on responsibility. Even if we say my thought or your previous guest thought is correct and an attack is coming and he just wants to run away from the responsibility, only a coward would take on a job that when needed him would run from. That's, again, cowardice. So it's time for Americans to realize the top guy might be your favorite, but that doesn't mean the current administration is for the people or care about the people. There could be many cowards in there. And then the event title is very interesting. Catholics for Catholics. Isn't this mainly group of people who have always bashed us, Brannon, the Christian Zionists, for being for Israel? So it's okay for Catholics to isolate themselves as an organization, Catholics for Catholics. But if us, the Christian Zionists, are for Israel, then we are, what, not America first? Yeah. We're not Americans. We should move
Catholics
to Israel.
For the Vatican is fine, but Christians for Israel is bad.
Exactly. I love that you popped up that. I'm like, Catholics for Catholics? So somehow you're telling me your type is more important than the rest of us, so you can isolate yourself, and you have an event where Catholics are going to talk for Catholics? I'm okay with it. It's just hypocrisy from their own end, because Carrie was pulling her hair out. By the way, I watched that whole Tucker Carlson interview because I thought it was amazingly entertaining if you watched it from point of view of a journalist, where she admittedly said she even thought she has no qualification to be appointed in the first place, but because she kept in touch with President Trump since her days of Miss California, she got the job. It was very entertaining to hear that from her own mouth, of saying we didn't get appointed based on qualification. We got appointed based on who has closer ties to President Trump. But when you watch that interview, all of her complaint is, me, poor Catholic, them, Jews and Zionists. But then she's a speaker at the Catholics for Catholic event. The level of hypocrisy.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, he says in his letter that Iran is not posing a threat. Yeah, we just saw where he was talking about President Trump having his life threatened by Iran. I cannot.
Wait, the date of that tweet is the day of Pennsylvania assassination attempt, by the way. If you put that back up, I believe it is September 5th, 2024. Isn't that when there was an assassination attempt? And that's what he's referring to.
September 25th, 2024.
25th, sorry. The part of Secret Service constantly failing to secure Trump is the part he's referring to, because they failed that day. So this isn't even an old tweet. His literally less than a year ago, well, I don't know, a year and a half ago, he's admitting that Iran's been trying to assassinate President Trump since 2020. And they even, apparently he's referring to that attempt again, right?
Yeah, and here's what he's
claiming. Go ahead.
In his letter, he's saying Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. Well, who are these 18,000 ISIS and Al-Qaeda terrorists tied to? You know, some of them are tied back to Iran in either funding, training, or an ideology, right?
I know for fact I can prove it. Let me plug my book. Buy my book, The Architecture of Jihad. I can prove it, documented in this book, not through some research, through books of Quran, Reliance of the Traveler, Hadith, Sirah, Life of Muhammad, and Tafsir. I can prove that most definitely all of these terrorist groups, whatever their names are, they're all tied together through one final agenda, and that is convert or die.
Convert or die.
That's why jihad exists in 10 different forms and based on their own documentation. Every chapter, Brannon, you've read the manuscript. You know every chapter has historic proof of Muhammad using that jihad. Sunni and Shia and Wahhabis were not created until after Muhammad. Meaning all of these Muslims believe in the same Allah, the same Quran, and the same Muhammad. So yes, regardless of their name, regardless of their book, their guidebook, rule book, regardless of their language, they have at least one tie. That is jihad in the name of Allah, in the name of Muhammad and the cause of Allah. That is shared tie for all of them. Yes. And as far as funding goes, I was actually texting with Hedy earlier today. They don't, when we say they have ties, we don't mean they train together or have coffee together. It's the chain, which is a Substack I will work on as soon as I have a minute. But the chain of jihad is connected through all of them. Iran sent the funding to Hamas. Hamas needs equipment from ISIS. That money goes from Hamas to ISIS. Equipment comes back to Hamas. Iran has the money. Taliban discovers all of the equipment we left behind in 2021. Iran pays Taliban. Taliban gives them weapon. Iran take those weapons, give them to Hezbollah to kill Jews. You see the chain here? They're all tied together, all of them. One way or another. Secondary tie. The first one is what we just established. But the second reason we say they're all tied together is because one way or another, this is circulating between themselves. Money, weapon, training, and connections.
Now, he says that Iran poses no imminent threat or threat. We have been covering this for so many years with experts like you, Shahram Hady, and so many others. But Dr. Peter Vincent Price, CIA analyst, the late Dr. Peter Vincent Price, sat here at this desk, and we did a lot of programming with him. I produced his radio show every week as well. I have several clips I'd like to provide for our audience tonight to remind you what Peter Price was warning about. Here is our first clip. Watch this.
It was the right thing to do, both of those acts, both the execution of Soleimani and the common sense acknowledgement that the IRGC is in fact a terrorist organization, not a legitimate organization. Indeed, as I noted, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps is the world's most powerful terrorist organization. The IRGC is the only terrorist organization in the world with an army, with a navy, with an air force, and with strategic missile forces, and a ballistic missile program, including an ICBM program masquerading as the Iranian Space Agency. All of these things are run by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. No other terrorist organization in the world has its own army, navy, air force, and strategic missile force. And again, mind you, the IRGC is not the regular Iranian army, which is not categorized as a terrorist organization. Iran does have, separately from the IRGC, a real legitimate army, a real legitimate navy, and a real legitimate air force. All these things it inherited from the Shah of Iran, and it did radicalize them, and has educated its officer corps in the tenets of radical Islam.
And of course, it is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. That's one of 4 clips. No, they're, and can you imagine what Peter would be telling us if he were alive today? Right? He died in, what year did Peter die? 2022, Logan? 2021?
2. No,
22?
hold on.
Can you imagine what he'd be telling us today if you were with us? 2022, Logan? August of 2022. August, yeah. We were in Springfield, Missouri
Yes.
when we got the news. Pitiful.
Yes. But can I expand on what he just said?
Please.
Qasem Soleimani. Let's talk about Qasem Soleimani for a second. Something a lot of Americans don't know. They all, Qasem Soleimani, IRGC, Iran. But in reality, Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian IRGC general, was the commander-in-chief of the Quds forces, or some American calls it Quds forces. Quds forces are basically the biggest enemy of Israel. They call themselves Quds forces for a reason. In Arabic, in Islamic Arabic, there is no name as Jerusalem. It's called Quds because it's the holy land of Muslims. And Qasem Soleimani was the commander-in-chief of the Quds forces. Again, another tie to a non-Iranian, supposedly, terrorist group. But it was literally put together and funded by IRGC. And later on, Qasem Soleimani was put in charge of the Quds forces. And though, again, it's okay, we don't have to know everything, but when Qasem Soleimani was attacked, everybody said Qasem Soleimani, the IRGC guy who was plotting to attack our embassy in Iraq, was killed. But the truth of the matter is another tie to IRGC was Qasem Soleimani, who was running the Quds forces, that they are the same as Hamas, the same as Houthis and Hezbollah. Their mission is to take back the city of Quds, as they call it, the holy land of Muslims, we call Jerusalem. Just an interesting fact for Mr. Joe, who thinks Iran is pose no imminent threat to America.
Let's go to our next clip with Dr. Pry.
Iran is ripe for a revolution. Are CIA and Mossad paying attention? Maybe we have no choice but to help Israel and the moderate Arab states help the Iranian people free themselves from the Islamist regime. I'm not talking about a war by the United States. I'm not talking about boots on the ground or any American soldier going into Iran. The Iranian people can do it on their own. I think all they would need is some money and some help, and it doesn't even have to be provided directly from the United States. This at least would knock out one of the bad actors, one of the worst actors on the world scene, an actor that may be equipped and armed already with a nuclear EMP capability to take out the United States. And yet they're weak. Their regime is ready to be overthrown by their own people. Let's help the Iranian people help themselves. Let's help them overthrow their evil regime and protect the United States and the free world from the possibility of a catastrophic nuclear EMP attack that could end our civilization, end the civilization of the free world, and destroy our ally Israel.
I wonder if Joe Kent knows about the threat of an EMP attack and the fact that Iran has that EMP technology. I think it's been around since the 60s, if I remember correctly. And he, of course, Peter Pry, was the chief of staff of the Congressional EMP Commission. He's like one of the premier experts on EMP. Is Joe Kent taking this into account? Look at this headline here from 2024. Iran just tested a ship-based missile fired from a shipping container. Now, this would be a way to deliver a nuclear missile up over the United States of America and detonate it. And doing so would not hurt us. The explosion wouldn't hurt us. It's what the EMP, the electromagnetic pulse, would do to our power grid, to our electronics. That's what Peter Pry was warning about. What year? Do you remember what year we released that TV show from Dr. Pry, Logan? He's going to look, because isn't it interesting? He's talking about, hey, let's help the Iranians do this because they could be set free and we could end this threat, a civilizational threat to us from Iran with EMP. What year of 2021? April 2021, we were released that. I don't know when we filmed it, but he would come in, he would do about 12 shows from this desk. We would film them, post them, release them. That was April 2021. I mean, fascinating. How can Joe Kent say there's no imminent threat from Iran when they have missiles that they have practiced and launched off of a shipping container, which means they could do this in the Gulf of America, off the East Coast, the West Coast, at any point, and you're going to tell me Iran is no threat to the U.S.?
Here's how he can do this, Brannon. Unfortunately, again, let me blame us, America. Unfortunately, when there's a campaign put together by anyone, the left, shadow government, the Islamist movement, anyone, the red, green, all of them together, when there's a campaign put together to push a false narrative to turn people or any case of impeachment against the sitting president, everybody can say everything. And from day one, the attempt has to be make this war unconstitutional, illegal, and unnecessary. That's where the narrative's been. Now, the latest one is Joe Kent coming out saying, I will take the dramatic step and resign because in good conscience, I can't support this war. I think the why we don't know, but the end goal goes back to the same reason the rest of them are doing it. And to be clear, I have always been, let's just stay out of it. I'm not promoting this. I'm not saying I wanted this. But I'm not going to label it anything but what it is. It was the right thing to do. We should have done it decades ago. But I think what we're seeing today from Joe Kent is exactly amplifying the same narrative that we didn't need to get involved with this war. Iran is not it doesn't pose imminent threat to us. This is unconstitutional, and the rest of the story we've been hearing for almost 3 weeks now. Well, 2.5 weeks.
Well, you and I were consistent last June with the 12-day war that the U.S. should stay out of this, just support Israel and let Israel handle it. So we've been pretty consistent. And if he believes that the U.S. shouldn't have been involved in this, then why did he ever take the job? Because we have a video of him on Tucker Carlson a year before he took the job talking like that. So how did he ever get the job? Number one. Number two, you can say we shouldn't be involved and resign, and that's his prerogative. But to say the reason he's resigning is because Iran poses no threat to America is just not right. That's not factually accurate.
It's Brannon, it's not right. It's dangerous.
Yes. Well, it's giving talking points to the regime and their partners and all the anti-Semites in the U.S. who want to use this as fodder to say that somehow President Trump's doing the wrong thing. It's very troubling that this is happening and that he's already booked up to speak at this conference with these people. Like, why would you ever speak at an event with Candace Owens and Carrie Prejean after the things they have said? Why? Even the things Candace has said about Charlie Kirk and his wife, Erica. And you don't have to be a huge supporter of Erica Kirk. I think she's made some serious missteps. But you don't go out there and take on a widow as like she did and the accusations she has made. Why would you even want to share a platform with someone like Candace Owens?
I would say that I would go with that if the statement about resignation wasn't already showing me that he has put his values and morals in the closet and locked it and thrown away the keys. He already went there, Brannon.
Well, this lady here, we quoted her. I guess she's a big homeschool leader, ran for Congress in Washington State. We're trying to get her on the show. If any of you know her, tell her to reach out to us. We've sent her a message. Heidi St. John, she said, President Trump's director of U.S. National Counterterrorism Center, Joe Kent, resigned in protest over the war in Iran. I ran against Joe for Congress in 2022. So apparently she was running for the Republican primary, and he won that, but then he ended up losing. And I tried to warn Republican voters that Joe was no true conservative. His ties to Nick Fuentes, his vote for Bernie Sanders, and his voting history alone demonstrated that he would not have represented Republicans well in Congress. Now, of course, to his defense, Joe Kent has publicly come out on Twitter and denounced Nick Fuentes. So I want to be fair. I want to be, I'm not trying to pick a side here. I'm just presenting facts. So if I hear something and I know something, I'm going to tell you. So we have a screenshot somewhere in here where Joe Kent said, "Look, I denounce Fuentes."
It's in your email.
Now Fuentes says, "Okay, thank you." Fuentes, of course, he says that to Tucker Carlson, we played earlier today, that he was willing to work with Joe, but he didn't want to be denounced. But here's Joe Kent from back in March of 2022. "My opponents are again spreading lies about me. I strongly condemn Nick Fuentes' politics, especially in regards to our ally, Israel." Okay. Yeah, the timing of this, though, is very strange. And if you think Israel is an ally, why would you then go speak for people like Candace, with people like Candace and Harry Pergine, if you believe Israel is an ally? Very troubling. All right, let's go to the next clip by Peter Vincent Pry from this very news desk. Here we go.
Now, as I said, President Trump wisely authorized the elimination of General Soleimani, the world's top terrorist, last year. But the existential threat to Israel from Iran and the existential threat posed by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps to Israel and to the world, including the United States, still remains, despite the execution of Soleimani. Iran and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard are the most likely perpetrators of the next Holocaust. Iran is the world's leading sponsor of international terrorism, while the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is itself a terrorist organization, and it has been categorized as such by the U.S. State Department on April 9th, 2019. On that date, President Trump issued a White House statement. Quoting President Trump, "This unprecedented step, led by the Department of State, recognizes the reality that Iran is not only a state sponsor of terrorism, but that the IRGC actively participates in finances and promotes terrorism as a tool of statecraft."
So again, how can you say that Iran is not posing a threat? There's former CIA analysts from this very news desk that I'm sitting at tonight telling us the facts. And we did so many programs on this. That's why, again, the resignation letter doesn't make sense. Hey, I disagree. We shouldn't be going up against Iran because they might let terror cells go off in the U.S. I oppose them because because of whatever. But or we should have let Israel handle it on their own. Okay, those are all fair arguments. We wouldn't argue with any of those. But to say that Iran is not a threat to the U.S., therefore I'm mad, I'm resigning, that's not even factually accurate. I don't know why he would say that, because it seems pretty damaging to his credibility and reputation.
True, but again, the narrative, like, remember when Candace came out, the only time she had something to say about Iran was when she said, oh yeah, Iranians are so poor and they're so oppressed and they so desperately need freedom, mocking the Iranian people, and then rubbing her in. It's like, oh, there's Bibi over here. It's like, oh, more land. Or Stu Peters, apparently now Stu Peters is an expert on Iran and Iranians, put a tweet out of, retweeting Crown Prince Pahlavi saying, this guy keeps embarrassing himself. I'm American. Even I know Iranians don't want to have anything to do with this guy. And before I even get involved, my fellow Iranians answered Stu Peters on that one. One of them asked, when did you become the mouthpiece for Islamic regime? But that's the thing. When your level of wanting to blame Israel for everything gets to a certain point, you become a mouthpiece for Islamic regime. You become a defender of Islamic regime, or in Joe's case, you will cover up for Islamic regime and its imminent threat to our nation. Unfortunately, again, this is beyond just, I don't think he cares for his reputation with the American people anymore. I mean, look at it. About maybe not exactly half, but close to half of this country are already with socialist, communist, progressive liberals anyways. And then you have MAGA, that's a split in 2-3 different ways now. And then there's the minority of me and you and your audience, Brannon. We are the minority in America today. Those of us who still care for America and our values and our Judeo-Christian values, we're the minority. So why would he care for any repetition? the next administration is going to hire him. I mean, this administration hired him. I'm sure, President Trump admittedly said that I knew he wasn't strong in security, didn't he? He still got the job. So repetition doesn't work in our days anymore. Those of us who care for our reputation is because we still have our values. This man clearly doesn't. Few big interviews and few big stages is apparently all it took for him to go against his own words, which I'm waiting to see if he's going to address that. Is he going to come out and say in 2024 what I said about Iran was wrong? Is he going to admit to that? Or is he going to say since September 2024 something changed and I had the information that the Islamic regime doesn't want to kill President Trump anymore? You can't have your cake and eat it too.
Let's go to the next clip. Peter Pry from this news desk a few years ago warning about Iran. Here we go.
Because the truth is, contrary to what official Washington believes, Iran probably already has the bomb. Now, 2 years ago, senior Reagan and senior Clinton administration officials warned that Iran probably already has nuclear weapons. Did you hear about that? 2 years ago. Why didn't this make the front page of the Washington Times and the Washington Post? Why wasn't this advertised all over the evening news on CNN and MSNBC? Not even Fox News reported it. But it's true. 2 years ago, a report was issued basically through National Review by these senior Reagan and Clinton administration officials warning that Iran probably already has nuclear weapons. Now you can see the report, Underestimating Nuclear Missile Threats from North Korea and Iran. That's the title of the report. Underestimating Nuclear Missile Threats from North Korea and Iran, which was published on February 12, 2016 in National Review. Underestimating Nuclear Missile Threats from North Korea and Iran, National Review, February 12, 2016. I'm going to quote from that report. Iran is following North Korea's example as a strategic partner allied by treaty and pledged to share scientific and military technology. Iran sacrificed its overt civilian nuclear program to deceive the Obama administration to lift international sanctions, to prevent Western military action, while a clandestine military nuclear program no doubt continues underground. That is why Iran, under the Obama administration's nuclear deal, will not allow inspection of its military facilities and prohibits interviewing scientists. Iran is concealing the dimensions and status of Iran's nuclear weapons program. End quote. I'm going to quote again from another part of the report, beginning this quote. We assess from UN International Atomic Energy Agency reports and other sources that Iran probably already has nuclear weapons. We assess from UN International Atomic Energy Agency reports and other sources that Iran probably already has nuclear weapons.
Already has them. And we've been saying that for the longest time because of people like Peter Vincent Pry, who had background in this, had security clearances in this area, was the chief of staff of the Congressional EMP Commission. He got secure briefings, intelligence briefings, classified briefings. And then, of course, he was releasing public information when we produced it. But this idea that they're about to get nuclear weapons, they've got them. Question is how many? And now we know they're practicing shooting missiles off cargo containers. We know they have EMP capability. We know they're aligned with Russia, with China. We know about all of their EMP capabilities and technology swapping. So again, if you want to resign, Joe Kent, resign. But don't tell the American people Iran's not a threat. That doesn't jive with the facts. What do you make about what we just heard from the late Dr. Peter Pry from this desk?
Oh, I agree 100% with him. I also started telling people in 2020 is when I started reporting that stop saying we're going to stop them from getting the weapon. They already have at least a nuclear weapon, and they're working their way up to get more. But I also said they're not going to use it on Israel. By their faith, as they call it, they are not allowed to contaminate the Holy Land. They are not reaching the nuke for Israel. They're building it for us. That was 2020 when I started reporting on it. So yes, agreed 100%. And let's not forget, as of right now, the weapon aside, we also know during all this war, they being Israel or US, they haven't still been able to reach, they know the location, but they haven't been able to reach the 450 kilograms of enriched uranium either. They're holding on to it. They have it as of right now.
It'd be
which I
interesting.
believe can give them more weapons.
It'd be interesting to see how long it takes for him to pop up on Steve Bannon's program too.
Tomorrow morning, Thursday morning. Yeah, remember, these kind of resignations, Brannon, he didn't wake up this morning, write the resignation and submit it. It's been in the works, and he already scheduled everything. This is PR. This is a narrative push. So he already scheduled all the interviews, all the speaking engagements, all the posts before this came out this morning.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's a lot of rumors swirling out there. Here's Buzz Patterson. Let's see. His title is Husband, Dad. What's his title? Husband, Dad. I guess he carried the nuclear football at one point. He just said that he's quoted in an article, LinkedIn article, Joe Kent was leaker who had been cut from presidential intel briefs for months. Well, if that's true, first of all, you would know that Iran's been a threat to us for years and years and years, but the increase of the threats could be much higher in the last few months. And how would he know if he was cut out of those briefings and wasn't getting that intel? But anyway, there are a lot of rumors swirling. We don't necessarily know all of which is true, but a lot of people are saying he was on his way out the door. He was going to be fired anyway. I don't know what's true, what's not true. But if you thought you were about to lose your job, I guess you'd put out your resignation letter with this, which in this climate, as you've said, holding this position is very fashionable. And as we're seeing, it's going to get you immediate kudos. You're a hero and booked at conferences.
Oh, yes. I think I said it on your radio, too. The show I produce daily, like immediately there was a full praise for Joe Kent, and it was their proof. They were using his resignation as a proof that, you see, Israel made us go to this war. It was immediate. The reaction was so immediate that, not only I don't believe this resignation was about good conscience, but I also don't believe this resignation was him coming to this resignation. No, this was a team effort. The response was way too immediate. 3.4 million views within less than 30 minutes of posting the resignation. Not the biggest X account on X. The whole thing, again, you look at it, you're like, okay, this is going to just add to the pile of anti-Semitism. Israel runs the world, and Trump went into an unconstitutional war. Like, it's written all over today's story.
Yep. All right. Great coverage as always, Annie. Promote your new book, will you? Where people can get it.
Absolutely. The Architecture of Jihad. And I never thought, again, Lord's timing, right, Brannon?
I know. Wow.
I never thought the release of this book is going to face the moments where there is debate between Iran's involvement with jihad and how we might be facing a lot of different different faces of jihad. So the Architecture of Jihad, 11 chapters, 10 of them telling you about 10 different faces, not phases, but faces of jihad that Muslims have been committing against Western countries, specifically America, since September 11, how they use it and how we can counter those actions, every chapter. And the very last chapter is called The United Front, where I give my fellow Christians specifically steps of how we can fight this back without relying on governments, officials, or politicians, but rather relying on our Bible and relying on Christ to fight this back and not give up our values. It is available, the signed copies, on my website as of right now, but as of Saturday, it is also available on Amazon, where you can get it outside of America.
LiveUpToFreedom.com, where you can get it, LiveUpToFreedom.com. And of course, she has her Substack, LiveUpToFreedom.substack.com. As always, thank you, Annie.
No, thank you, Brannon. Keep safe.
You too, my friend. And of course, Annie can be heard right here each and every day, 3 p.m. Central, 4 Eastern Standard, Monday through Friday, right here on Worldview Tube. All right, guys, we'll be right back after this very short break.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed. Joining me now is the CEO of Bella Grace, and I got a lot of very important pictures to show you. You know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, I got some pictures to show you tonight that the proof is in the pudding. She joins us now. Christina, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Great to see you. I want to go right away to some pictures because my wife said, you got to get Christina on and you got to get her to talking about all these testimonials that I'm seeing that she's putting out there on social media. My wife is very impressed. Look at this, before and after. That's one of many shots. This is related to results from which product?
That's the natural GLP-1 Bella Melts right there.
So she's dropped weight before and after the Bella Melts that stimulates the natural GLP-1. All right, let's go to the next one. And by the way, people are dropping on average about 7 pounds a month, right?
Correct,
okay.
Yes.
Before and after, that's with the elixir and the collagen. And I would say also notice again the reduction in what I would say would be inflammation of the face, right?
Correct. Yes. That's an incredible before and after. You can just see how firmer and smoother her skin texture is. That's a reduction of inflammation, healthier gut function. That's an incredible before and after. Yeah.
And I can testify to that because when I got on the Bella Grace now, December 2023, about a month in, people said, oh, you've lost weight. You've lost weight. Well, I knew that I hadn't lost any weight from the scale. And only thing they were noticing was the look in my face that I'd lost weight, which was that inflammation, that puffiness. So I know that firsthand.
Yeah, that's one we're experiencing on a daily basis. People just shedding that inflammation. And I think that is the most powerful thing about this collagen is that it does create that transformation. It turns off that gene marker that's actually causing inflammation and turning on the gene that's causing collagen production. So that's why everyone's experiencing the loss of inflammation, which is the root cause of all illness, which is really incredible what it's done for so many people.
Now, we had a snowstorm here. Was that February, guys? We had the snowstorm and they shut down. Well, my jacket's really kind of shining tonight, Logan, with this digital camera in here. We could probably change a setting on that, fix that. But I look like Elton John or something, you know? Wearing with his electric suits. But the power, the post office and UPS and Amazon all shut down for about 2 weeks due to the ice storm here in the Mid-South. And I did not get my Bella Grace during that time. Apparently, my inflammation came roaring back. And that's when I ended up with such massive inflammation that I was diagnosed with a herniated disc in C6 and C7 in my neck. I'm now getting it all back under control and getting rid of the inflammation. But that was what happened after, and my hand started to crack and bleed again which is from the leaky gut, because this collagen, of course, is high grade and helps with your gut because the gut lining's collagen, I'm told. So I got off it for 2 weeks when I was forced to, and I started having all kinds of problems. So I said to the wife, order up so we always have a 30-day, 60-day supply so that we never have that happen again.
Yeah, that's incredible. You know what? The elixir is actually the ultimate supplement when it comes to body wellness. It's powerful formula. It actually consists of verisol B collagen, the world's best and most clinically studied collagen, and with the cat's claw and astaxanthin, real astaxanthin, which is actually 6,000 times more powerful than vitamin C. Those three in combination are what's causing those incredible results. So I'm not surprised, Brennan, because we hear it every single day.
6,000 times more powerful than vitamin C, the astaxanthin.
Yes, correct. And
that crosses the brain-blood barrier.
Yes, correct. We have clinical studies to support that as well. So it's backed by science, but powered by nature. All of our products are powered by nature, giving these incredible results, which is just undeniable. It's incredible what it's been doing.
Let's go to the next picture we got here. What do we got, Logan? Nope, he'll fix that. All right, here's the next one. Okay, now again, I can testify to this one. Look at the before and the after, the hair growth. Now, I've had that same thing. I got the pictures to prove it. My own kids have said, yeah, your hair was thinning. My own wife joked and said, I didn't want to tell you, but I thought, oh my word, he's losing his hair. And then December 2023, I get on collagen, the cat's claw, the astaxanthin through the elixir. And for the first time in years, my barber has to use thinning shears. So I can absolutely testify to what that gentleman there is experiencing.
Wow. Yes, that's incredible. We see a lot of that. Fuller, thicker hair, thicker and healthier nails. The collagen also improves skin hydration. So that's just a combination. And that's just 10 weeks on it. So that's just a 10-week difference right there.
That's really amazing. And of course, that's not just guys, but a lot of women, I'm sure, are appreciating this fact as well.
Oh, so many women, especially postpartum, and just after you hit a certain age in life, you start losing a little more hair. It starts thinning, I would say, especially in women with hormonal changes. So we're seeing a lot of that. I think you even have a before and after of a woman that has experienced the hair. Oh, look at that. That's incredible. The firmer and smoother skin texture, the fewer lines and wrinkles, that skin elasticity. I mean, that's no treatments right there. That's real people with real results.
That's not having to put Botox in your face, right?
No, none of that. None of that.
Which I don't know. I guess some women choose to do that. My wife did it one time. I forbade her to do it ever again. I'm like, I'm just not comfortable with you putting Botox near your brain. Sorry, that's just me. But here, take all the Bella Grace you want. There you go. What else do you got for before and after pictures? Oh, there we go. Tell me about that one.
Wow. Well, this is a very incredible one because she's actually, you can see the difference just there physically, but I remember her story. This is just 60 days in. She's had a lot of severe gut situations and issues, and the elixir promotes a healthy gut function. It promotes healthier immune function. It reduces eye strain and eye fatigue. You can see that on this lovely lady as well. It helps with physical endurance. I remember her being able to say that after 60 days, she was finally able to take a walk again and start going to the gym again. So this is not just about pretty hair, skin, and nails. It's supporting joint health, supporting the mitochondrial function. It goes way further than what we're just perceiving, what we just see.
During that 2 weeks where we weren't getting any mail due to this ice storm, I didn't put it together, but my wife said, are you aching? Like you bend over and it hurts and you're just achy? I'm like, yeah, what's going on? She said, well, we're off the Bella Grace and have been now for several days. I'm like, doggone it, you're right. So we got off of it and that achiness and pain, starts coming back. So for us, it's mild, but it's still an irritant. But for some people, and we hear it from our own viewers, they were in so much discomfort, they didn't want to go out and walk around in a big box store. Now they're like, I go out go to a big box store, cover that big box store, get what I need from one end to the other. I'm great. I mean, and again, you hear these and you start thinking, I don't know if I buy it. But then we get them one after the other. And these people don't know each other. And we get all of these testimonials. One lady supposed to have surgery in her finger. She couldn't bend her finger. She gets on Bella Grace. A few weeks later, she's bending her finger, cancels the surgery. The number of people we have talking to us about themselves or their spouse, their pain, their eyesight is not real good for driving at night. Their eyesight's fine during the day, but they don't have very good eyesight for driving at night. They get on Bella Grace. Within a few weeks, a few months, they're not having the problems they were with their vision driving at night. Now, that's what we get from our people. Do you hear that?
I hear that every single day. First of all, you can't go a day without the Bella Grace elixir. So you got to be ready and prepared for every snowstorm. You got to be prepared for every hurricane out here in Florida, because you don't want to go without it, because people do start feeling the side effects coming back to them if they are off it. And that's really just your auto response and your body reacting to the diet and everything that goes into our system. You've got to be able to control what you're taking. And the elixir helps and supports that in so many ways. And again, peptides are such a big word in the industry right now. And Verisol, what's in the elixir, is actually bioactive collagen peptides. So these peptides are rapidly absorbed, and they're effective that way because they do break that blood-brain barrier. So we're really the first company who've ever put these three ingredients into one product and having these type of results.
Tell me about the NAD. My wife specifically said, ask Christine about the NAD. Tell me about that. You got a new NAD.
Has she been on the NAD? Oh, yes. You got to get on the. So we just launched the NAD. I'm extremely excited about it because, again, it is all natural, cellular energy and longevity. This is one of those products that you want to take midday. I take it midday simply because instead of a coffee, I prefer taking an NAD. It's significantly healthier. We suggest taking 1 to 3 a day for optimal results. NAD plus, really, it exists within every living cell, and it's essential for cellular energy, your metabolism, DNA repair, longevity. So all of that combined with an elixir is what's giving people incredible results. It's making people feel better. Each gummy gives you resveratrol, ginseng, zinc. So all the things that your body is actually required to get on a daily basis. And the results have also been transformative. I'm going to have to send you some of those, but it boosts cellular energy. It enhances focus and clarity, supports DNA repair, restores skin elasticity. I could go on and prolongs longevity. It supports the mitochondria. It encourages, it's just such a good product. It's going to be one of those products that I think is going to be a bestseller, just like the elixir. Mm-hmm.
Well, we have a friend of ours that has a clinic, and they do NAD IVs, right? And I saw a video of a guy talking about these people that he knows that are 60, 65, 70 years old. And he said, and I'm just shocked at how young they all look. And he said, you know what the common theme was with all of them? They were all on NAD. He said the common theme with every one of them was they were taking NAD.
Yes, absolutely. I remember when NAD first came out, it was something that you could only get through an IV, and it was a long process, and it wasn't fun at all. You would have to sit there for hours to get some. So now we formulated something that also breaks the blood-brain barrier, goes right into the system, good ingredients, and getting all of those results that the clinics are experiencing. So they're really now supplementing with this NAD. They're taking out the IVs.
Excellent. Well, it's all there, folks. MelissaHouseBG.com. This is one of our biggest sponsors. You know why, folks? Because the product works. Melissa loves the skincare, of course, because the products work. She loves the Bella Melts. Okay, people are taking 2 or 3 of those a day, on average losing 7 pounds a week. And of course, the elixir, I take that every day. I actually right now I'm taking 2 a day because, again, I'm trying to get cured up from this these 2 herniated discs and get inflammation down. We believe in it, and you guys do, which is why so many of you order it. You're on a subscription, so you get the discount, and you don't miss it because you're on a subscription and get too busy and forget to order it. And the reason this is one of our biggest sponsors is because the product works. Because like you, I've been taking it since we started promoting it in December of 2023. So many of you listening friends, viewing friends, you know it works. That's why you keep ordering it. You wouldn't order it every month if it didn't work. You'd stop. That's one reason why this is one of our biggest sponsors, because so many people have gotten on it and the number of people keeps growing. Therefore, obviously, it's going to be one of our biggest sponsors. So it's one of our biggest sponsors because it's one of our most popular products. And it's most popular products because they actually work or people would quit. And you're seeing that. The retention rate is like 80%, right, Christina?
Yeah, it's a little over 90% right now. The retention rate is incredible. Yep, people get on subscription. They don't get off the product because they genuinely see and feel the results. They feel a difference. And this is just a healthy approach to longevity and to wellness, and not having to go into clinics every day and ask for help when help is right in front of you. And you can just help yourself and help your body, because your body really knows what it needs, and it's not out of reach.
Well, my wife has said to me many times since December 2023, a few weeks into 2024, when we both started getting great results, she has said to me, what are we going to do if they ever stop making Bella Grace? But you assure us that's never going to happen, right?
That's not going to happen, especially now we're launching new products because it's doing so well and we're changing so many people's lives all around the world. I mean, nationwide, there's a lot of craziness going on in America right now. So I'm happy that we can at least bring a little bit of joy to people, knowing that they are healthy at home and they're taking care of themselves. And I believe it's the best thing that we could do on our part.
And you just ended up on the front cover of a magazine in Europe. Was it Vogue or what was it?
Yeah, Vanity Fair.
Vanity Fair. Okay.
Yeah.
You were on the cover.
Yeah.
So this company is growing internationally.
We're growing internationally. We're super excited. We just launched Bella Grace Kids, where a portion of sales, for example, the skincare, that's 25% off now. A portion of sales goes towards Bella Grace Kids, where we support children worldwide that are in orphanages, sex trafficked, abandoned, molested, you name it. And we just actually went to an orphanage over in Cancun, Mexico, and helped out a lot of kids, thanks to Bella Grace and your supporters and everybody that's been part of this journey. And supporting you guys have actually been supporting children worldwide. So we're very appreciative and grateful to grow this organization and for the sake of the kids.
And you're kind of, that's near dear to your heart because you were in a war zone for a few years and find yourself living in that kind of situation, right?
Exactly. That's exactly where Bella Grace Kids stems from. I was born and raised in a war zone back in the Yugoslavian war, and I was living in refugee tents for the first part of my life, the first 3 years of my life. So it's very important to me to be able to give back to children and the most vulnerable all around the world. So that's how Bella Grace Kids came to life. And that's how, through these products, we're not only helping ourselves and our health feeling better, but we're also serving a greater purpose, and that's serving the most vulnerable all around the world.
Wow. Christina, CEO of Bella Grace, thank you for all you're doing and for great products and for allowing us to have a partnership with you.
Now, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much to all of your customers and supporters. We're very grateful. Thank you all.
Yeah, well, we had one of, I won't say which one, but we had one company we worked with at one time emailed, said, don't call us a sponsor. I'm like, well, what are you? I mean, we promote your product. It's a product we believe in. It works. I mean, you're helping sponsor our No, we don't call us a sponsor. Like, well, are you ashamed of what we stand for? I mean, if you're ashamed of what we stand for, tell us now. We love your products, but we'll quit promoting them. They didn't want us calling them a sponsor.
Hey, to each their own. I mean, I don't know what else you would call it. We love and support you and Melissa. We stand exactly with you and everything that you guys stand for. So we're super proud to be actually in collaboration with you guys. Sponsors, no sponsors. We're definitely here and supportive of you guys as well.
Well, we appreciate it. And I mentioned that because I know from your background and what you personally have gone through, I know that, and I've gotten to know Dr. Lucky and so many of them. You guys are free market, entrepreneurial, American spirit. I mean, there's so many things that we promote here and stand for that I know we're in lockstep on. A free society, free speech, private property, growing businesses, letting families and communities build what they need for themselves to support them and their families, or in this situation, our organization that supports families. You, of course, taking on this issue of children and orphanages and trafficking and stopping that. I mean, we're in agreement on so many. We don't have to agree on everything to agree on some major issues. And I've gotten to know that just from dealing with you personally and a lot of the other Bella Grace team members, that we have a lot of very serious issues that we all are we're lined up on.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. I agree. I think that we're just doing our part and doing our best with the voice that we have, the platform that we have, just like you and Melissa do every single day. We're doing what we can to help our nation, to help our children do better, thrive better, to help families provide for themselves and to have an extra source of income. Maybe, again, it's tough times. People are just looking for an extra $200, $300, $500 to help themselves out this month. And if we can help and support, that's what we're here to do.
Well, they can do that if they go to melissahousebg.com, click on that, join Brannon and Melissa's team, and you guys can become distributors. You can become ambassadors. That's what they're called. And you promote a great product just like you hear me do on the air. You can do on your social media. You can do it with your family and friends. Certainly social media is a powerful way to do it. And all you got to do is use the product, have your own testimony, and then start telling people about what you like about the elixir, the Bella Melts, the new NAD, the skincare. Just speak the truth. All you got to do is use the great products, give your own personal testimony, speak the truth, and then push them to your website, to your ambassador page. They make a purchase, they're getting the great products, and they're supporting you. So maybe there's some folks out there saying, I could use that extra $200-$300 a month for groceries or whatever, the increase in car insurance and homeowners insurance, whatever it might be. This is a great way to do some entrepreneurial work as well. Go to melissahousebg.com, click on that link, join Brannon Melissa's team. Otherwise, if you aren't using these products, try out this Bella Grace for 60 days. Just start with the elixir and then try that for 60 days, or maybe try the Bella Melts. And tell me if after 60 days, you're not a lifelong consumer, because we are. I don't know what I'd do without Bella Grace, because I've already seen what happened when I went without it for 2 weeks due to a snowstorm. So I'm not stopping. melissahousebg.com. The CEO of Bella Grace recently on the cover of Vanity Fair overseas. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you so much. To add to that, Brennan, we also have an incredible program called U+3. So if somebody wants to receive their elixir for free, they just got to get 3 friends to subscribe to the elixir, and theirs will show up to their doorstep every single month for free. So
there you go.
Just speak your truth, just like you said, and you have the ability to earn your product for free.
You don't have to be like a gifted salesperson. All you got to do is tell your own testimony, your own story. It's legit. It works. It's got 100 clinical trials behind Bella Grace, the elixir. 100 clinical trials now, right?
Correct. Human clinical trials, correct.
Fascinating. Thanks again, Christina.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
You too. The CEO of Bella Grace checking in tonight, and we sure appreciate them. We appreciate all of you that get it and take these great products each and every month. It makes a big difference. We ask for people to support us. We're a listener-supported network. Well, here's a great way to support us, and I think support your health at the same time. In other words, you're getting something for your support, which I think, again, supports your health like it supports ours. So please consider doing that right now. Making an order, get a subscription, whether it's the elixir, the Bella Melts, the NAD product, the skincare. Check it all out. melissahousebg.com. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. Would you like to gain access to over 20 years of my radio shows, TV shows, my books? I've written 15 books, and most of those books are ebooks now. And we have conference DVDs, conferences where we filmed our conferences at the Ozarks, literally starting 20 years ago. It's all available in our archived vault. All you have to do is go to worldviewtube.com/vault. worldviewtube.com/vault. And for a reasonable monthly fee, you gain access to over 20 years of Christian worldview programming, news, information, books, documentaries, and a powerful search engine. And folks, it's a great way not only to educate yourself, equip yourself, but it's a big way that you can help fund our continuation as a broadcast network. Please check it out. worldviewtube.com/vault. worldviewtube.com/vault. And help us continue pushing out a Christian worldview. Joining me now from Dallas, Texas is Shahram Hadian. Shahram is on the ground there spreading the good word about, the need to understand Islam. And of course, the Islamists are taking over churches left and right. Have you seen the reports? Well, he knows about it firsthand. He's on the ground. He joins us tonight via phone to bring us a report. Shahram, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
For having me back. Good to be with you.
All right, let's talk about the Muslims. Logan, maybe you can find a clip, because I know the Islamists were on there bragging about a church they just took over in Texas somewhere. What are you hearing on the ground there? Are people waking up?
Well, I would say that there is a wake up. I don't know if the wake up is happening in the churches, but there are lots of Christians. Last night, my event, there was a great turnout there, and there was a lot of Christians there that are getting it. They're awake. They understand how deep in the hole they are in the state of Texas with the Islamic takeover, Brannon. But I don't think they're realizing that the Islamic movement has multiple frontal approaches. And one of those approaches is what you just mentioned, which is that they are not only building these enclaves like Epic City, but they're also taking over existing churches. And Rare, Foundation.com, if Logan wanted to look for some articles, there's a couple of articles on there about large churches in Texas that are being bought out. These are churches that have died out. They're taking over the property. Christ's Way Bible Church was one that is north of Fort Worth, Texas. There's another one that was taken over, a large church complex that was taken over just south of Dallas there. This is becoming very concerning, and that was part of my warning last night to this audience, that they have to wake up and understand what is happening. And by the way, one of the guys that is taking over the church there in north of it's called I think it's Holton City. That church that was taken over is a group that is the Dio Bondi. Now, we know the Dio Bondi very well because our good friend Phil Haney, Brannon, was exposing the Dio Bondi movement in America before he was killed and taken out and silenced. So these guys are not your average Muslims buying up these church buildings and turning them into mosques and Islamic schools. These are the fundamentalists. These are the absolute cream of the crop of the Islamic jihadist movement, and it's very concerning.
Listen to this. This is from Rare Foundation. Here we go. Listen to this guy. Here we go.
So know this, that Islam will enter every house. Every house. Don't worry about the Islamophobes. They can yap all they want. Their children will be Muslim. And it's not going to stop. You can stop immigration. You can stop whatever. You can do Muslim bans. Wallahi, it's not stopping. You know, when you're at the park, somebody talks, hey, you believe in that Islam that be chopping off hands? Yeah, I do. I think it's better than what you believe in. And you're not stealing something small. It's more than a 1/4 of a gold dinar and thing. You're just stealing because you want to cause corruption and this and that. Chop off a hand in public. The Sharia is the Sharia. We believe in it. Yeah. The hudud are hudud. We stand by them. We're not afraid of, we're not ashamed. We don't apologize. We don't water anything down. We don't compromise. None of that.
In order to promote the knowledge of Islam, and this is the best way to protect the deen, the Sharia in America, is to learn it, so that you will be able to teach it, especially to Americans. Listen, wallahi, if America knows about this Sharia, I'm telling you, if you can convince the public, away from the politicians, away from the senators, away from, because these guys, they have different agenda. But if you convince the public, they're gonna go in the street and say, long live Sharia, long live Sharia. They will do it.
Wow. Jerome?
Yeah, Brannon, the first guy that was on that clip there that you just played, the one talking about we're going to enter, Islam will enter every house, Ibn Farouk. So they bought this building that is south of Dallas. It's not a building. It's a massive it was a Korean Baptist church that they've taken over, 40,000 square foot they're planning, and it's, all the information is in the article there. But I'm actually planning on driving over there later today to look at this property. But both Abu Zayed and Farouk, these are, as you see on this clip, Brannon, these are Sharia adherent. These are not, quote, radicals. These are fundamentalist Sunni Muslims, and they're telling you what their agenda is. And that was my message to these Christians in Texas last night. They got to wake up. They got to understand that when the Islamic movement is in the phase of buying up, not only, again, making their own cities and buying property to build these complexes, but they're also buying up these church buildings that are already sitting there, they're already existing, and they don't have to. They can just very quickly turn it around and turn it into a mosque, an Islamic school, and a neighborhood around it. This is another phase of their advance. This is very close to upper house behavior when they start having this type of a takeover. So that's why I'm here in Texas, and that's why this is an existential threat to the United States of America. As you and I have said, Texas is the tip of the spear, and that's my message here to them, is that the Islamic movement has targeted Texas because they believe that Texas will be the bellwether of the United States of America. How successfully? Yeah, go ahead.
Listen to this clip, Trump.
Going to be dropping some great news about Islamic marriage and home financing and no riba, no changing names, and many other initiatives that we've been working on. And Sheikh Kareem, Allah bless him, constantly he's working on these, right? So one of the initiatives was this, the Deen Center, a place where we can have people come and learn about Islam and give da'wah, and alhamdulillah it's up and running. But the future is for us to provide training to those who will be involved in da'wah.
This vision has 4 components, which really we wish to replicate in every city, but Dallas would be our first. So we want that model to be replicated in Florida, but we have to bring in Dallas first, because that's where the fitna is coming from. Now, we have 4 components.
All right, so there you go. This is a model that they're doing in Dallas that they just admitted they're going to bring it to Florida and everywhere else. It's the model.
It's the model. And do you know who that guy is, Brandon?
Who is he?
That is Kareem Abu Zayed, okay, the older guy with the white beard. Abu Zayed is one of the top Islamic eschatology scholars. He wrote a book recently on the Islamic Mahdi, on the coming of the Mahdi, where he talks about that they will conquer Jerusalem for the caliphate, they will set up, and that their so-called Jesus will come back from Damascus, march onto Jerusalem, he will kill all the Jews, and they will set up an Islamic caliphate from Jerusalem. That's who this guy is. This guy, Abu Zayed, is one of the top scholars in regards to Sunni, not Shia, not 12er eschatology, where they believe that the 12th Imam is the Mahdi, but the Sunni eschatology where Jesus, the prophet, will return with the Mahdi and march an army. That's who this guy is, and he's telling you Dallas is our starting point. Dallas is our model, and that's exactly what I was communicating to these activists here. The good news is that there is a wake up here in Texas by the activists, by the grassroots, by
they asked if I could make sure.
Sorry, that's on my end. Sorry about that. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, but by these organizations. But I don't know if the churches in mass will wake up in time. And again, I was
so basically what you're telling me is the sheep are awake, but their shepherds who are hirelings are not, because they're hirelings.
Exactly right. And the thought I had last night, I was driving back from where I was speaking last night after covering this stuff, and I thought, again, where's our buddy James White? Where's our buddy James White? Where is James White, who was all about, we're going to hold hands with the Muslims. When the Muslims are persecuted, when the Christians are persecuted, we're going to be holding hands. Where are these guys in saying, you know what, we were so wrong. We made a huge mistake. We underestimated. We allowed the snakes into our camp. We repent. What have we done? Lord, forgive us. Body of Christ, forgive us for lifting up people like Yasser Qadi, for lifting up Islam as not being monolithic. Listen, what did you hear in these clips, Brandon? Islam is monolithic. Their agenda is monolithic, whether Sunni or Shia. And by the way, there's a strong, one of the other messages I brought last night is the strong presence in Houston of the IRGC, one of the largest Shia schools and mosques down in Houston is very well connected to the Islamic Republic. So when you have fools like Joe Kent, and I can't believe you just said it, I don't know if you covered this, but you just said it before we went on air, that now, did I hear you right? That Tucker Carlson is going to interview Joe Kent?
Yeah, he's gonna be on, it looks like Joe Kent's going to be there. And he's going to be speaking for Catholics. That's an event coming up. And he's going to be speaking, here it is. I'll just show it again. Here we go. Here it is. Catholics Prayer for America. Sadly, General Flynn's in there. Carrie Prejean, Matt Walsh, and the latest. There she is, Candace Owens. Where's Candace? Yeah, Candace is right there.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is a train wreck. Oh my.
Train wreck.
And apparently now we've got word that Joe Kent will also be speaking for this. They put out the announcement. If I could find it real quick, I have so many tabs open. But they put out an announcement. Can you guys find it in there? I thought I had it open. They put out an announcement that Joe Kent is going to be one of the speakers. Oh, I thought I had it, but there it is. There we go. So he's going to be one of the speakers, Joe Kent.
They found their turncoat within the administration. This is what they've been longing for. They needed somebody from within the administration to be a turncoat, to be one who's going to come and say, oh, well, I tried to warn them. Even though, as you covered on your radio program today, we know that this guy was on his way out, that he was he should have been fired a long time ago for being a leaker, for being that he was opposed to our counterterrorism. And again, Samira, I had sent you the message on her. Where was her name again? Samira Munshi, who was on the Religious Liberty Commission. She was sitting on the Religious Liberty Commission with Carrie Prejean Bowler. How did these two end up on the Religious Liberty Commission? Where was the vetting? And now we find out that potentially Samira Munshi, who is an Islamic activist, who is tied to the Muslim Brotherhood, who is a proponent of Sharia, that we find out, of course, she's very pro-Palestine. We find out that more than likely she was feeding information to Carrie Prejean during that Religious Liberty Commission hearing that went sideways, and that she started videotaping right before Prejean did her stunt, as if it was planned. Now throw Joe Kent in there, and now you got these people that are going to be opining about how the Trump administration is Islamophobic and being wagged. The what is the expression? The tail wagging the dog. Israel is the one who's really pulling the strings here, and we're just doing the bidding of Israel. But not a surprise that Tucker Carlson, Brannon, would have Joe Kent on to then come out and opine about how we bombed an innocent country and Iran posed no threat to America. And, here we are. These guys are Christian nationalists. They are dominionists. They are not for the United States of America. They are not America first. They do not believe in our constitutional republic. They want a Christian theocracy under their brand of Christianity. They are as dangerous as the Islamic movement, in my opinion.
Wow. And of course, we're waiting to see more information on whether it's true or not he was a leaker, because there are some saying yes, others saying no. But apparently he had, according to reports, been shut out from receiving intelligence briefings and maybe was on his way out the door. And this was just a good way to go out and save some face. I don't know. We're going to try to keep following it. But nonetheless, it is now being used against many that are supporting Israel and many of us that are clear-minded, reasonable Christian Zionists, not some folks that, we're not trying to build the third temple and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, there you go. We'll see how this all pans out. Ram is reporting from the ground. He is on our network, broadcast with us. You'll find him also at tilministry.com, tilministry.com. All right. Thank you, Sharam. Be safe, my friend.
Thank you, brother. Great to be on with you again. Until next time.
You too. We'll be right back, guys. Go to worldviewtalk.com. Get your satellite phone like I have, because you know what? China is in on our power grid. That is a matter of proven fact. If you want to have communications with your loved ones, your family, your children, maybe your spouse travels, maybe you have a child away at college, You want communication should the grid go down. That's why you need a satellite phone, worldviewtalk.com. But look what else they have. They also have solar generators. I have one of their solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400, a solar generator. So I can, of course, charge my satellite phone. I can run my coffee pot. I can run my whole house if I want to. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com, or use that number, 1-866-738-3224. They have very friendly operators that will explain to you their products, but you can explain to them what it is you're desiring to acquire. How much electricity are you wanting to generate with this solar generator? Well, they'll tell you what size you need. worldviewtalk.com or 1-866-738-3224. All right, guys, the toxic load. I've been telling you guys for a long time that, as much as most of us try to avoid toxins, it's really impossible to avoid all the toxins, right? And I just saw a clip the other day. I want to play it and get Dr. Lana's response. I do the red light sauna several times a week. Listen to what this doctor is saying about toxic loads. Listen.
You cannot live healthy if you don't sauna. I sauna twice a week for an hour to an hour and a half. When we try to measure the average American, they are a toxic waste dump site, literally. The average American now has some toxins that exceed the levels that we know cause disease in animals. We measure meat, hard to measure anything, because I sauna on a regular basis. I'm still getting toxins in. I take them out as fast as I'm getting them in. So
he takes them out as fast as he gets them in. Now, that's a guy trying to be careful, and yet he's saying, I'm still getting them, but I'm getting them out as fast as I can. He's doing the red light sauna, or saunas at least. Doc, I want to talk to you about this, toxins, because I know you try to avoid them. I try to avoid them, but they're unavoidable now, particularly if they're spraying chemicals in the air. And there are a lot of people saying this, a lot of smart people, attorneys, that research this and go into courts. They're writing legislation. So this is not conspiracy anymore. Tell me about the toxic load. He's saying the toxic load for the average person is now high enough where you see it causing disease in animals.
Brannon, and I have taught this to my patients for years and years and years, spot on. And you're absolutely right. It is unavoidable, absolutely unavoidable, because think about it. We're making free radicals anyway, just by eating, breathing, moving. Okay. And then the second piece of this is what you're talking about, glyphosate that's been sprayed on our food since the 1970s. It's sprayed on carrots and quinoa and sweet potatoes, and you can't wash it off your food and you can't cook it off your food. And it's linked to cancer, high blood pressure, Crohn's, colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, birth defects. Okay. That's just one thing. That's glyphosate, not to mention the free radicals that we get anyway from just living. And the other thing I want to mention is the forever chemicals, industrial chemicals that are in clothing, in cookware. And again, a lot of them are just unavoidable. They've done studies and found forever chemicals that last for years and years and years. They last decades in your system. They've done studies and found forever chemicals in every single baby that they pulled the blood from the umbilical cord. Like 20,000 infants had these chemicals in them, industrial and forever chemicals. That's just a couple of things. That's three things that I mentioned, not to mention the 5G with our computers and our cell phones. 5G creates a toxic load in your body, and the chemical is called peroxynitrite. It is more than 1 million times more damaging than the free radicals that we just get by everyday moving, eating, breathing. And then the environmental pollutants, are another issue. And then you add on, honestly, I know we're 6 years down the road, but you add on what went on through that pandemic with all the variants and viruses and all that. So we're bombarded every single day. Our own bodies make, shall we say, free radicals, which are burning up, and they're like fire in your cells. So we have that going on just from eating, breathing, moving. And the environment is, I don't care what you do or where you live. You could eat all organic and drink spring water and be thin and healthy and never eat sugar and have a bite of cake ever again. Don't drink, don't smoke. It doesn't matter. You can't escape. There's a couple things we can do about it. And I think your audience knows by now, we don't even plan these most of the time. And when you said toxins, there's a couple things that you can do if you'd like me to share.
I do, but I want to go to one more clip about these toxins and how bad they are. Here's a quick clip from Joe Rogan on it.
There's some serious evidence that most people who eat the common American diet, what was it? The number of the people that had Roundup in their system. So glyphosate.
What?
Yeah, glyphosate is a really powerful pesticide that they spray on all kinds of different plants. And I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 90% of people tested had glyphosate in their system.
Roundup.
Yes.
So stuff you spray to just kill everything.
Exactly. And it's illegal in some countries and should be illegal in America. But the problem is if you make it illegal, how are these monocrop agriculture companies going to function? Okay, it's 80%.
It's 87% of children.
87% of children. So this is 2022. I would imagine this goes up every year. 80% of Americans have Roundup in their urine. That is so crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. Doc?
Absolutely. As I said, this has been going on since the 1970s. And there's a couple of things that you can do because you can't wash this off your food. You can't cook it off your food. Buy organic when you can. But honestly, when you have all those toxins in your system, you need something. And I'm Scandinavian. And actually, I'm talking to, I'm going to be talking to your wife too, because I want to redo some parts of my house and get a sauna as well. So I'm all about that, but a lot of people don't have a sauna. The only thing that
and by the way, let me just say the red light saunas are becoming so affordable.
Oh, they are.
Yes, you find them selling them at Lowe's now. You walk in the front door of Lowe's and they're selling them right there at Lowe's. So they're becoming so popular, and of course, supply and demand. The more they're being manufactured, the cheaper the prices. So they're becoming extremely affordable. Not to mention, you can just get the red light lights themselves, but the red light saunas, obviously I put mine at about 1:30 and get in there for 30, 45 minutes.
Absolutely. I just had a patient that asked for one for her birthday and her husband bought it for her. They didn't have room right now in their house. She hooked it up in her garage, on the one side of her garage. She's like, I don't care. I wanted one for so long. So you're absolutely right. It's like the big screen TVs from many, many years ago. Now they're quite affordable. Same thing. Yep. So all about the red light saunas. Absolutely. The glutathione, we don't plan this. If you are not all swishing at least twice a day. Two things I want to mention. This removes everything. The glutathione swish gets in your system in about 70 to 90 seconds in your cells, and it removes glyphosate. It removes heavy metals, cadmium and lead and mercury and aluminum. And you have you have people with behavior issues, or you have children that are diagnosed with all of these neurological issues. They have toxins in their brain. And as you all know, the vaccines are loaded with them, and those chemicals from the vaccines cross the blood-brain barrier. Glutathione is the only thing that will remove all of it. Peroxynitrite from your cell phone and your computer, glyphosate from all the food. It'll remove forever chemicals and toxins and heavy metals and reduce free radicals in your body that you get just from eating and moving. So, and I'll tell you, I don't mind sharing. And Brannon and I have talked about this before. If you're feeling a little bit under the weather or you need a little bit more energy, you can swish every 2 hours for a couple of days, or every hour on the hour. You can also gargle with this if you're getting a sore throat. This removes your toxins on a daily basis. It's so affordable for what it does. The other thing, when you've got all these toxins, toxic buildup rather in your system, is your gastrointestinal tract is impaired. I'm a digestive health specialist. I'm telling you right now, people can't lose weight. They're getting headaches. They're getting bloated, and they have a toxic load in their GI tract as well. So something that you can do is get a good pre and probiotic, make sure it removes glyphosate as well. And the other thing that you could do is get that Gatatana in you, because that's replenishing the nutrients that go right inside your cells, because you're not absorbing nutrients very well because we have such a high toxic load. It's why everybody's getting sick. So stay on your water drinking too. I know Brannon has really good, healthy water. Look into that through Brannon's site, because it is critically important that you stay hydrated. 74% of Americans are walking around dehydrated. You've got to swish, and you've got to do your Gatatana, and you've got to flush all those toxins out once they get connected with the glutathione and taken out of your body through your kidneys and your bowels. You've got to drink water to flush it out.
Do.
Absolutely.
So there you go. I'm doing the glutathione every day, swishing with it. Highly recommend you guys do it too. Swishforlife.com. We have a lower third for that. Swishforlife.com. Again, swishforlife.com. Now, let me talk to you about something else. We don't rehearse this stuff, so you don't know what's coming. But I've been giving myself a shot in the stomach every day for about 5 or 6 days now. I am taking the peptide BPC157. Do I have that right, Logan? BPC157. Are you familiar with that?
Well, I don't use it in my practice, but tell me how you're doing, because I'll tell you the peptides. And
Well,
I've
I've got
talking
this
to your wife
herniated
about this.
disc in C6 and C7, which has left my thumb, index finger, and middle finger numb. Now I can report that I'm sleeping better, that my thumb is almost back to 100%. My middle finger is back to almost 100%. And the index finger is probably back to 50% better. So obviously, and then they can tell by which finger I'm talking about, if it's C6 or C7, I guess is what they tell me. So I'm making improvements because I guess that is going in there and decreasing that inflammation, which of course, when that C6, C7 get pinched, it runs down into the shoulder, down the arm, into the fingers.
Absolutely. And this is, we say this all the time, Brannon, all the time, we do not rehearse this. And it's like God brings it to us. I'm telling you, this is Jesus, right? So, and you know, your wife and I are good friends, and we were just talking about this. I use peptides in my practice. I don't use specifics like that, because you really do need to go to a specialist. And that was so, as usual, so smart of you and your wife to do that. And I'll tell you a quick story.
I have to give all the credit to Dr. Mishima Williams. She heard what I was suffering with, and she said, I'm getting you
peptides.
I'm getting you on BPC 157. I said, I got some WD-40 in the garage, but she wanted me to do this. She was adamant that I would agree to do it before she shipped it because of the cost and everything. And I said, all right, I'll check it out and get back with you. I did. And there are virtually no side effects. Now, of course, we have to be careful with some of the other peptides. So this is not an endorsement of peptides all across the board, and I don't give medical advice. But for me personally, Melissa and I are very careful. I will hardly even take Advil. I mean, I have to be in a lot of pain to even take Advil. So I just don't do meds. So I did the research. Melissa did the research. And we talked to Dr. Mishima Williams, and there's virtually no side effects, period. Zero.
Exactly. Because, and I'll tell you, and we're going to talk about this more. We couldn't even plan this. We're going to talk about this more in the coming weeks on your show. I do use peptides in my practice. Matter of fact, I just took mine, and I'll tell you a very quick story. You have a very specific need, and you have a specific peptide going in. Perfect, because you're under medical care, and we don't give medical advice on your show ever. But I had carpal tunnel so badly in my hand, which is so rare for me. Thank God I get up every day and feel good for most of my life. Thank God. I am telling you all, I couldn't hold, I'm like Brannon and Melissa, I love a cup of organic coffee too. So I couldn't hold my coffee cup. I could barely write. I could barely type patient notes. And I'm, thank God, I don't have pain in my body. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I thought, you're the naturopathic doctor. Think, right, Lana? Think. And I upped my peptides that I use in my practice. We're going to talk about this over the next week. And I am telling you, same thing. I couldn't even bend my thumb, everyone. I could not do this. I couldn't bend my thumb, my wrist, nothing. And I'm telling you, in a matter of a week, less than a week, I thought, oh, I feel a little better. And as the days went on, I'm like, oh my gosh, my hand is better. And it's the peptides. Absolutely. So you got a specific one for your specific issue under medical care. That was brilliant. I'm so happy.
Well, I think I got a little video clip. Joe Rogan again has somebody talking about it. I've not heard this clip. Let's hear it together. Here we go.
It's so effective. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how many thousands and thousands and thousands of patients my clinical team has put on BPC 157, never with an adverse event. It is so good for the gut. It's a gastric pentadecapeptide. It's actually synthesized from gastric juice, so it's actually tolerated very well orally.
I've started to see it orally, which I never really saw before. I always saw it as an injectable, but I see it advertised as orally.
Well, site injecting it into the site of an injury, like if you have a lateral epicondylitis or something, you inject it to that site of injury is very good, right? It'll localize there and kind of help call platelets to that location. But it's also extraordinarily good for leaky gut. So people that suffer from inflammatory conditions of the bowel, irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, diverticulitis, those sorts of things, BPC 157 can be just a game changer.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been reading about with a lot of people, including some different reports. Gut, good for your gut, cardiovascular system, brain, spinal cord, muscle, bones, ligaments, tendons, Achilles, you name it, BPC can heal it.
Well, you think about it, peptides are the building block of protein, and they don't damage the body like eating too much meat or eating too much ham or eating too much cheese. I mean, you don't have to be a vegan, but Americans, we talked about this, Americans eat way too much animal protein. That's very hard on your joints and your gut and your blood vessels and all that. When you use peptides, just like you said, no side effects, and your body takes them in and uses them like Legos and building blocks and says, hey, we can solve this problem. We've built this in the body with those peptides. I just had a patient this morning, terrible gastrointestinal issues, diverticulitis, diverticulosis, and irritable bowel syndrome. And I started them on the peptides little by little, very, very simple. And for the first time in a long time, they're like, I'm so excited, Dr. Lena. They said, I'm taking more and more, and they're upping their peptides, and they are starting to even get more energy and feel a lot better. And when you're sick like that and you could start to feel better, it gives you confidence and it gives you hope, and you can start doing more, in your life because you're starting to feel better.
Yep. And so I'm definitely doing much better. Of course, I'm icing constantly. I got a gigantic ice pack behind me right now. I mean, the last 2-3 weeks, I've lived with an ice pack. So I got a big, gigantic ice pack behind my back right now. I ice pretty much 24/7 and trying to get that inflammation down. I move it around. It might be on the shoulder blade where it is now. When I get off the air, I put it on my neck. I put it on this side of my neck. Sometimes the pain in my arm, I have to put it here on my bicep where it feels like someone's stabbing you with a knife. Sometimes I put it on my forearm, sometimes my hand. But I'm constantly icing to bring all that inflammation down. And when it all started for me in earnest was when we had that ice storm and I couldn't get my Bella Grace for 2 weeks. That's when my inflammation started, and this is when this all started.
It's interesting you said that, because I'm like, I don't get sick either. And I had to miss a show. I lost my voice. I was coughing. It's like, it's not me. But I will tell you, I was out of we were moving things, and a lot was going on, and I'm working, and I didn't take my glutathione nearly as much as I did. As a matter of fact, I missed some days. I was out of Gatatana for the first time in a couple of years. Same thing. And I got sick, and I don't mind, I'll share it with all of you. I started gargling with the glutathione like you did, Brannon, and I started swishing every hour on the hour for like 2 to 3 days. I took 1 18 milligram ivermectin for 7 days, and I took 4 scoops. I rushed an order of Gatatana, and I took 4 scoops a day. So it was my glutathione, my Gatatana, and I took an 18 milligram ivermectin. And I'm not giving medical advice. I'm sharing a personal story. And I know some friends and family people that were so sick, and it just, boom, I was better.
Good.
And you're absolutely right. You can't be without certain things.
No, you can't.
And that Bella Grace, I know, has really helped your back, and it reduces
that
inflammation
cat's claw,
because
it takes on that inflation,
cat's
right?
claw. That is it. That is it. Wonderful.
It's all there, melissahousegpa.com. And then the other place, swishforlife.com. So, and then Dr. Lana's website is inspiredbywellness.com. All right. Thank you as always, Dr. Lana. Appreciate you.
Pleasure. Glad you're feeling better. God bless
you, Doc.
everyone.
Appreciate it. All right, guys, that's our broadcast for tonight. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. Another great program, don't you think? Please go to worldviewfoundation.com, please. $10 a month, $20 a month. Hey, if you can do more, please do. But for those of you that can support us and you're not, you can do it, but you're not. Would you please do that now? Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Hey, don't forget about our free app for iPhone and Android, worldviewtube.com/APPS. When you get that app, you also should turn on the notifications so you know whenever we go live. All right, may God save America. Take care.